or one of us, your passion is the world of mountain biking. From enduro to gravel races and everything in between. This is Insider MTB, the podcast that takes you behind the handlebars, into the dirt, and behind the scenes of the mountain biking world. And now your host, Austin White.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the podcast. This is, I'm Austin White. I'm here for episode 21, and I got a pretty unique one coming for us. I have Tom Spiegel, Team Big Bear. Is
Correct.
that the best way to pronounce it?
Yeah, Team Big Bear.
Team Big Bear, because you have a massive list of achievements, and it might be more than just Team Big Bear. We have a lot that we're going to dive into, a lot to talk about, but before we get into a little bit of that, you've never used Maxima, which is kind of surprising to me.
I have not. But like I said, I live in a bubble.
They make oil for motocross, but now they're into bikes, and they have a lot of teams and riders. But Chain Lube, we use SC1. I basically make my bike look brand new again. I feel like that's something that you could use. Like, you could use some of that.
Yeah, I'm not famous for maintaining my bicycle.
Oh,
so it's usually dirty. I just use a dry lube on it and call it macaroni. So I'm telling you.
You just use water on the chain, or what?
No. I
lube.
put a little chain lube on it, though. But yeah,
all right.
I'll have to try it.
Nice. All right.
I'll have to try it.
Look, today we're doing if this is your first one listening to us, we are talking about Team Big Bear, history of cycling. I would give you as maybe a Davey Coombs level of cycling person. Do you know motocross? Or?
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I don't.
All right. Well, I know motocross, and that's my analogy. So if anyone's listening, this might be the Davey Coombs level adjacent in cycling. And Davey Coombs is one of the, maybe you would call like sons or fathers of motocross, and made some of the biggest races there is, and Loretta Lynn's Outdoor Nationals.
I've heard about that one.
Okay,
yeah.
So so we're gonna get into a little bit, Tom. Did I give you a good enough introduction? I've read the website. You got a long list of histories.
Well, I mean, Team Big Bear, the first race that was put on by Team Big Bear was 1985.
Okay.
And that was put on by at that time, he wasn't my business partner at that time, because he was doing it himself. So in 1985, the first race that he put on was in Big Bear. And so in theory, this year's we've done bike races in Big Bear for 40 years, Team Big Bear has. He and I became partners in 89. And so I've been doing it since 1989. So we were there in the early days, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people like Joe Breeze and Gary Fisher that are the fathers of mountain biking, Tom Ritchie, Charlie Kelly, that were started in the 70s, mid-70s, but we didn't come too far after them. And I think probably I would challenge anybody to find me a mountain bike promoter that's put on as many races as Team Big Bear as a company has, and or as long. I would find it hard to believe that there's somebody that's been doing this for over 40 years.
I don't know.
Maybe there is.
And so could we?
And if they are, you should get them on the podcast.
Well, they are.
I'd love to sit and talk with them.
Seriously, I don't know them. For me, I'm a West Coast guy.
Yeah, right. Me too. So
I maybe some of these guys that you're mentioning, I don't even know. I already know a few of them, the names. I don't know the history. I know a little bit of history of you.
Right.
And can we say that? So, from my understanding, Norba, biggest probably U.S. series for dirt cycling.
In the 90s, it was huge.
Yeah, but it's bigger than anything now.
That national series barely exists anymore.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying.
It was big.
It was the thing.
It was the thing for a long time.
I mean,
I think we put on almost 20 years of Norba Nationals.
Holy moly.
A couple of World Cups. We did Norba Nationals at Deer Valley, as well as Bryan Head and Big Bear. We did a World Cup at Deer Valley, 2 World Cups at Snow Summit.
And when you say World Cups, was this UCI World Cups?
Yeah, UCI World Cups.
Okay, and they came over and you were the promoter.
Correct.
And they were obviously the sanctioning body. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know that. I had no idea.
Well, there were 2 unique situations, too, the World Cups. One was supposed to be up in Washington, and the other one was supposed to be in Tahoe. And at the last minute, they realized they couldn't put them on in either place. This was different years. And they called us and said, well, there's too much snow in Tahoe. And then another year, there's too much snow in Washington. Can you guys put on a World Cup? We had 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah, and we said that's fine. We're good.
To put on. Okay, well,
Yeah.
World Cups back then is
They
big.
were pretty. They were a pretty big deal.
It was a big deal.
I mean,
okay.
you know, it's like anything. It's. How do you say it? I mean, we were already putting on. We had an amateur cup series. We were doing 1,500 racers. So we had 1,000 cross country racers and 500
gravity. I'm guessing
gravity people,
Okay.
downhillers.
Okay.
They used to do 2 runs a weekend.
Okay.
So when they called us, they said, "Well, you guys won't be able to do your amateur races." No. You can only come here if we can do our amateur race.
So were they putting it on top of your already race that was going,
Exactly.
hey, how do we get the points,
Exactly.
figure it out? Okay.
Yeah, so we had the permit, we had the infrastructure.
Was it already a USA Cycling sanctioned race at that time when you were doing that?
Okay,
so that's how the conversation
We have
went.
always been a USA Cycling sanctioned company.
Oh, really? Okay.
We learned in the early days from some risk managers that if you're better off being sanctioned by a governing body than buying, I can go buy my insurance from McKay Insurance in Iowa.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I've done it for some events, some running races I did over the years. But for the most part, I'd rather have a sanctioning body because they have a rule book.
Yep.
You know how it is with motocross. There's a rule book.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference.
Helps you. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I get it for sure. So I mean, you get that phone call and they say that to you, and you have, at that moment, you're putting on the biggest races in the U.S. for not road, but I would say gravity.
They were pretty big races back then. I think the year that we did that World Cup when we had 1,500, 1,000 cross country riders, that race was the 3rd biggest race in the country, our amateur cup.
Okay.
Sea Otter was bigger, and I think I don't remember the other one, but there was 2 other races that were bigger than us.
Did it help your race? Or was it just like...
Oh, it was fun.
It was fun. Okay.
It was fun.
You would
awesome.
do it again, though.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was very fun.
Because, I mean, I've seen something like that in the and for motocross side, like Motocross to Nations, and that's our biggest thing, is it came over and they couldn't do it at a certain track, and then another promoter took it, and a lot of lawsuits and money lost because you're at a high level and you got to spend so much to have that many more and like the level. I don't know.
It was back then. There was a lot of sponsorship money in the game, and so that was, you know how that goes.
So
it's
then,
different.
how did that? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, was it confusing?
It's different when they come with some infrastructure and bring you the infrastructure because they're paying for it through sponsorship money, as opposed to saying, "Hey, you guys are responsible for all of this. You got to do this, 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 and this." And we had a lot of connections. The ski resort was good to us. We could get access to lodging fairly cheap.
Yeah,
a lot of times free. So there's a lot of things that were in our favor back then.
It obviously worked out where it wasn't
we didn't. No, we did great. Trust me. We did just fine. As cheap as Pat and I always were, we made sure we watched our dollars.
I mean, you couldn't have lasted this long without having some sauce, that you're making the right formula or something,
exactly.
Along those lines.
Without a doubt.
I mean, was it kind of what? I mean, at that point, you had to feel a little bit on the top of the world of having some of the biggest races, the series, and all that stuff. You have World Cup and all this and that. Where did the shift in the balance change? As
far as the size of the events?
Yeah, and what years did it start going a different way? And what do you think was the reasoning for that?
So,
what happened to Norba?
USA Cycling, well, back then it was Norba. USA Cycling had Norba, whatever they called the roadside, and they were 2 different animals. Mountain biking was growing, and it was...
Were they in the same office at that time then?
Yes.
Okay, so still same office.
Same office.
Same people then.
I was on the USA Cycling board for 10 years.
Okay.
And watched a lot of this, and they were also very focused on the road, because that's when Lance was big in the 90s. And the board of directors was made up of mostly road guys that had a lot of money. And they supported the road side of it a lot. But somehow, at that time, Phil Milburn, who was the Norba guy, had a bunch of sponsorship money. And they used to come at Norba Nationals and bring infrastructure. They'd bring 2,000 feet of fencing, all kinds of... Gatorade was a big sponsor. They had a bunch of... Chevy was a sponsor. And so there was 6... national races in the Norba series typically. Mammoth was one that they went to all the time. Big Bear was the other one. And then Mount Snow was a staple for a long time, but they went to Wisconsin. Bunch of different there was 6 venues every year that and races. I mean, Mammoth was doing 3,300 racers. We were doing 2,800 racers between downhill and cross country. The event started on a Tuesday, Wednesday.
And this wasn't big enough, I guess, because they cared about road and the TV coverage. Then is this why?
We could spend a whole day on that.
Well, we got to get a little bit of info, you know.
The point was this guy Phil Melbourne managed to keep this Norba thing going for a long time, despite the fact that the big players over here that were supporting road.
Yeah.
Because when Lance was big, their numbers of, I mean, they had like 30,000 members of road cyclist members, whereas on the mountain bike side, they might have 10 or 15 at the most.
Yeah. Okay.
And as long as Lance was winning Tour de France, their numbers were off the charts. Yeah. So even though the fact that they were focused on the road, over on this side, this guy Phil Melbourne kept us going, and nationals kept happening, and they were big. We went to Deer Valley. I actually didn't think about it. Deer Valley was a staple for, I think, 15 years.
And now it's just has no races.
So that was in the early 90s. You know, there were racers doing that were making, you know, $100,000, $150,000 in sponsorship money.
On XC side and
both.
both. Okay, really?
Both. Oh, yeah. Excuse me. There was a lot of sponsorship money when, actually, Dee that you met earlier.
Yeah.
Early on, I hired her. She parked all the trailers. It was a time when there was like 30 freaking major teams, and GT started with a semi-tractor trailer.
And so were these bigger than what the World Cup was? Like what we see now?
The Nationals were equally as big as the World Cup, if not bigger back then.
Really?
The U.S. was the place to be. It was the place to be.
What?
I'm telling you, it was crazy.
What happened? You have to be the guy with the answers for me on this.
So at Snow Summit, between the 35 or so teams that came with all their stuff, we'd have 60, 70 vendors.
That's crazy.
You know, it was big. Like, and the crowds.
And you were doing like this every weekend
The one national we had, it was freaking awesome. So we're at Snow Summit, and we decided to have a police escort for the pro men's cross-country race and women's.
Oh.
They were raced separate times. And so they took them down away from the ski resort, and then to get to the ski resort, it's called Summit Boulevard, and you come up Summit Boulevard, and we had the finish line was set up there, so they did a start lap. Man, there's 100 guys in that category, and people were lined on the side of the road like 6 and 8 deep. Seriously. No fencing because the boulevard was way too long. There was some fencing by the start-finish line, and I'll never forget watching that cop car come down on Summit Boulevard, making a turn. And they started coming up, and, you know, racers, and the boulevard's wide. Well, all of a sudden you see the group spread out like this, and the cop he says, I got to get the hell out of the way. He pulls over, and now they're charging up Summit Boulevard, and all there is in space about 20 feet wide, but because all these people are lined up. And I look at Pat and said, shit, we're in trouble. And we try to get the people back, and fortunately the riders are smart enough. They funneled in because they had to go underneath the start-finish structure, but it scared the crap out of us. It was like, oh, my gosh, we are in trouble. But it's just some of the coolest stuff happened back in the early days. It was amazing.
And so you're saying I missed the good stuff. I missed the good days.
Mm-hmm.
I missed the good days. All right.
It's hard. You know, it's kind of interesting because it's hard to it's really fun right now in the sport because there's a lot of juniors and things racing, which is awesome. You know,
was it not like that back then? It was just mainly
juniors. You had, you know, if you had 5 or 6 little kids that raced, it was a lot.
Stuff.
Yeah, and people be, oh my gosh, look at that girl's 11 years old, and she'd be the only one in the racing. The point is that back then, it's fun now for me because I get to see all these kids.
Yeah.
But back then, the sport was growing. I mean, Anheuser-Busch, okay. Biggest freaking. They had mountain bike paraphernalia.
Your key sponsor right now.
Yeah, exactly. Back then it was we did Bud Light was the sponsor, but they had like we used to go down to their not the main but the local distributorship, and they had a book, and in that book they had stuff like you could buy posters that had Bud Light on it with mountain bikers on. I mean, it was crazy. You know what it was in my mind? Mountain biking back then was the first adventure sport. Like, it was perceived as being, wow, that's crazy stuff. Like, that's weird. Like, who does that shit? And so I think people gravitated towards, and also in the beginning, if you owned a mountain bike, in my opinion, because we all got them in the 80s, you wanted to race it. That's what you did.
Really?
And you went, that's why you owned a mountain bike, to go race it. And you raced in the mountains. So everybody from LA would come up and race in the mountains.
Yeah.
And as time has gone on, to answer maybe your question, what's changed, in my opinion, at least in California, and I would bet you if we talk to other places, maybe similarly, people had options other than just coming to Big Bear or going to Mammoth. They could race at Benelli Park.
Yeah.
They can race at Vale Lake. They can race it over the hump. They can race it quick and dirty. The options are limitless, so they don't have to drive for 2.5 hours.
Was there not like a smaller races, local races as much back then?
No,
it was mainly
not much regional racing. It was mostly large.
It was
racing.
mainly national racing.
But now, granted, we had a great run. I mean, shoot, this will be the first time in 40 years we don't have a bike race in Big Bear. We had a pretty good run.
And so, okay, you're called Team Big Bear. So you how much do you have to do with and excuse my ignorance with Summit? And that did you start biking there basically? So
that's a good story too. Pat and I went. My partner at that time, we went back to Mount Snow. Well, actually, I take that back. Mount Snow is in Vermont. It was supposedly the mountain bike capital of the world in the early days. They called themselves that. Everybody tried.
Now it's Arkansas.
Now it's
Arkansas. Yeah.
But that's all right. So Pat opened up a bike shop with a buddy of mine, Blake Ordway, and they opened up a bike shop, and Pat all of a sudden got a mountain bike. And he decided that we were all doing triathlons at the time, and he got a mountain bike. He said, "This is the future." Seriously. And we all got mountain bikes, gave up triathloning. He had opened up a bike shop that was both road and mountain, thinking mostly it was going to be road. And immediately he and Blake switched over to mountain bike stuff.
And this is when Lance was hot.
Not even
before
Lance.
Before Lance.
It was before Lance.
Okay.
So, Lance was in the...
He was a kid.
Yeah, he was.
Didn't even know what the Postal Service was then.
So the bike shop bounced around in town, and then we wound up going and talking to the ski resort, because Pat worked at the ski resort.
We're talking
in
Vermont?
Snow Summit. No, this is Snow Summit.
Summit.
I'll get back to the Vermont part.
Okay.
So we wind up, Pat talks to he worked there, and his buddy was the marketing director, and we all knew the owner, Dick Kuhn, and Dick was kind of interested in the mountain bike thing, but not really sure. So we had gone back to Mount Snow to race, and we thought that was supposed to be the place. Well, back then you raced cross country, you raced downhill, you did it all. And when you went there to race downhill.
And when you say that, that's one rider doing it all, right? Yeah.
Right. You had to put your bike on your lap.
Oh, I literally was gonna ask the question: did they even have for bike racks?
That's the crazy part. So that's where the story. So here we are riding up the thing, and Pat looks at me and says, "You couldn't be on the same chair," but he says, "This is the mountain bike capital of the world." I would assume they would have been hauling bikes up.
So, but did anywhere else have bike racks or
no? Nobody was doing it.
Okay.
And I got a buddy of mine, Bill Cockroft, who's in the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, worked at Mammoth forever. He'd sit here right now, and we'd have a conversation, and it'd get a little heated over who started hauling bikes first. So Pat had this crazy idea that we're going to start hauling bikes up the chairlift, but we're going to actually haul them.
Yeah.
So he wrote a letter, and the bad part is somewhere along the line in a move, when he and I split as partners, that letter got lost.
Okay.
It was framed and everything. And we agreed, Team Big Bear, that if we bought the hooks, which were like $2.25 a piece, whatever, I can't remember the company buying them from, they would install them, and they would start hauling bikes up for bike races. And hence, downhill racing was born at Snow Summit.
Oh, so this was at Summit at that time.
But it was spawned by the fact we went to Mount Snow, and here's this, what are you putting on your lap? And we knew that the ski resort was never going to let us do that.
Yeah,
put
no
them
way.
on your lap. That's like, you drop a bike or something like that. And so literally.
So you guys were a part of the first bike rack on a lift.
In my opinion, I would bet you, again, if you put this out to the world, outside of having a conversation with Bill Cockroft, because they were doing it too. They did the gondola.
There's some way.
And it all happened at the same time frame. Bill said they were doing some things where they were hauling people up and doing like a tour on bikes.
Okay.
But it was all 88, 89.
Yeah. You
Right in
watched
that
the
area.
evolution of that. I mean, I couldn't even imagine today just hopping on and trying to hold my bike up to the lift, and maybe it stalled out one time,
I'm telling you, on your lap, going up the chairlift. It was crazy. So
then you're going for a race run in spandex or something. I don't know. I'm just like,
well, okay, so picture the hook. The hook was like one of those things you screw into the wall at home.
it's like a Home Depot.
And
fine.
back then, though, you got to remember, we were racing on our cross-country bikes.
Yeah.
So they were 22, 23 pounds. You'd have a hard time probably hanging an Enduro bike on that hook.
Would it even
like
hold
repeatedly.
it? Yeah.
So
were you guys just duct taping these things and welding them on?
no, they
actually
drilled a hole and they bolted them on.
Okay,
'Cause you could buy a threaded version of the one you screw into your wall.
Okay.
And so and again, we were doing, when we were doing downhill races, we did crazy stuff. We did a 12-hour downhill race.
How do you do a 12-hour downhill race?
How many laps can you do?
In 12 hours?
And
that was the race.
And the chairlift is part of the deal. Doesn't matter if it stops. You can't. Yeah. We had a 12-hour cross-country race going on.
That's the beginning of Enduro is what you just said to me right there. What Enduro is
well,
now.
Enduro started with a thing called Super D. Trust me, got lots of history. So when we were doing that, so the hooks go on the chair, and it was crazy because literally everybody raced on their cross-country bike. And the resort would not allow us to take you've been a resort, they got water bars to divert water. Well, they wouldn't allow us to knock those down. We used to fly helicopters there to pick people up off the mountain all the time. Dee did first aid for me.
So then
it was crazy. I'm telling you, Austin, it was a nutty time, and yet it kept growing to a point of we were doing 500 downhillers. And so back then we talked earlier about, money, right? So Pat and I came up with this great idea. If we give them 2 runs, we can charge them $10 extra.
Like, yeah, I'm in for that.
Pretty easy business.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's how much more work? And not that much.
None.
None, really.
Just an extra timing. They used to finish at the bottom of Snow Summit coming in both directions.
No.
Honest to God. One lane, and then they'd go back.
What a time.
And they did 2 different runs. So everybody did 1 run on that side and 1 run on this side. But, most of the time we averaged like 350, 400. But the biggest one we had was 500 downhillers. At the same time, 1,000 cross-country riders. It's crazy. I got to kind of get sideways.
Let's just say 500, and I guess summer, so you have a longer day. How and lift time? I'm just were they as fast as they are?
No. And then when we were done with that, we did slalom racing under the lights at Snow Summit.
I was going to say you had to be under the lights.
Some nights we try to get done, but usually because we had 150 slalom riders, that we'd have Kenny Wood, the electrician. Kenny, got to turn the lights on. We're going to be here a while. It was nuts. We were unplugged. We were pretty unplugged back then.
That was before it was 52 cents a kilowatt during for power now. Now when
the ski resort they didn't care back then. It was everybody was having fun with it.
It was crazy.
Moly. It was crazy. Yeah, but the 12-hour downhill was fun. The 12-hour cross country race at the same time. We did stuff that was just. We did a women's only event for years that had 300 women show up back in the day. 300.
So, but I feel like a lot of people say that the women was not that big, and now
they didn't race. So the premise of the event was probably started when I took my wife at that time on a ride and she cried. Men, husbands, boyfriends, acquaintances should not teach women how to ride a mountain bike. It doesn't work. So we came up with this idea to try to get more women racing, that we would put on an event for women's only. So we knew all the top pro cross country and a lot of them from Southern California, Lee Donovan, April Lawyer, Mercedes Gonzalez. Well, they all volunteered their time. We put them up in Big Bear, took them to dinner every night, and I think we had at that time 30 instructors, and they taught 300 women how to ride their mountain bikes.
That's huge.
It was like one of our better events from a profit margin concern. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in this to make money. I'm not going to hide
I get
that,
it. It's true. It is true. People forget that.
We're trying to teach women how to ride. I mean, Dee taught.
Especially if you can win on both ends. You're teaching something good and you're making money.
And if we get 20 extra women to show up for a bike race, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's not like you were lighting the forest on fire and that's how you're making money. I get it completely, 100%. I'm fully with that.
Yeah, it was. We just.
So then.
We did a thing called Downhill Mania. Most people don't know that. Four people racing on a downhill course at the same time, covered by Fox Sports.
What? How does what?
Line them up.
Oh, okay, so
line them up.
Okay.
Go.
Yes. Okay.
And we had helicopters. It was
almost like BMX downhill.
It was a BMX downhill, technically. Yeah. It was awesome, but nobody was doing that.
Yeah.
I bet you nobody's ever done that.
Crankwork. You call Crankworks up now when they do some of their stuff like that, and you're like, "Hey, what's up? Where's my royalty?"
Yeah, you guys didn't invent this shit.
Yeah.
We were doing it a long time.
Maybe
before
they'll have you in the booth. You'll just be talking about it. I like that.
Yeah.
So was Whistler around back then?
No.
Never even heard of Whistler at that time.
No. Hell no.
No way.
I rode my bicycle to Alaska. And I started
from here?
Yeah, I started in Vancouver.
Okay.
And I met this guy through mountain biking, and he suggested I take this. This is the start of my ride.
Of your gravel ride.
It was.
It's what gravel is now,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the only thing my bike didn't have was drop bars.
Yeah.
But all I remember is that was 84, 85, 86, 87. I left the YMCA camp and decided I had to go find myself. So I took my mountain bike, and they dropped me off at the end of this thing called the Indian Arm in the Sound there. And he said, and you're going to go up this road, and it's going to drop into a town called Whistler. It was not much of a town back then. And
that road wasn't as. I mean, have you been to Whistler lately or no?
Oh yeah, we timed Crankworks one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the road's a little wider now.
Well, this was a road that wasn't. That's not the main.
It wasn't
road.
even a road.
Well,
probably you just did some dirt road.
Some crappy dirt road, and I remember. Yeah, it was a long story, but either way,
I
remember going through Whistler, and now it's Whistler.
Yeah, Whistler's Whistler now, right?
Exactly, which is awesome.
I mean, you've sat on this interesting end of what cycling is then to where it went, and then to where it is now, and watching just all this evolve from now we have speed rails. I'm sure you've seen the new bike racks where they put them on, and then you take them off yourself. I don't know if. Yeah. I hate them. I fucking hate them.
Oh, yeah. You're talking everything. Yeah.
But I'm saying you've seen this just crazy evolution of cycling and stuff. And to me, and I've been on this weird search lately of like, okay, what happened in America for cycling? How did we drop the ball? Like, why aren't we the one with the semis rolling up anymore and having the big races? And how did we lose it to World Cup? Was World Cup bigger? Was that big back then, or they've just now?
Well, they've been big for a long time now.
But I mean,
it's a wow.
It's a little bit of a loaded question, but I'm like,
what happened? In general, Europe, and the rest of the world are cycling nations.
Yeah,
we're not. We're a ball and stick.
You get ran over on a road bike here. You get any of that?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're just not a cycling nation.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the evolution of it becoming. What we've only had 2 Olympic medals. 2 women. Susan DiMattei won a bronze.
Did Kate get one? Then we just had.
No, Kate didn't get an Olympic medal. She won a world championship. We've
had
a couple world champions.
Yes.
We've had a couple world champions. Allison Dunlap. Georgia Gould won a bronze medal.
And then Haley just won one last year.
And Haley. So we've won 3. You're right.
And the women's mainly.
In the women's. But we've never had an Olympic, men's champion.
No.
I just think that there's just more people
riding bikes there.
Riding in Europe at a high level than there is in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, we got some great kids that are racing their bikes, and I think the high school league has helped. And obviously, Kate Courtney.
So then you've probably seen the beginning of NICA.
Yeah. Well, Kate Courtney was a NICA kid.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if Haley was or not. I don't Well, she might have been. But
I think she was, yeah.
yeah. So we've seen some improvements. But on the men's side, that's a tough competition.
It is.
It's hard.
And so maybe they developed their youth a little bit better over there in the beginning, unlike us maybe. We just didn't.
I would bet you if we could go inside their world, there's more money in it.
Yeah.
Why is the kid going to go race his mountain bike when right now, we'll give you a free bike and discount on parts.
and maybe a free entry. Maybe.
So back in the day when people were making good money at it, Eric Carter, Brian Lopes.
Yeah.
We've done well on the gravity side.
Gwen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've done well on the gravity side.
And why do you think is that? Because I feel like they almost have better mountains sometimes than us,
So I look at the early days, they were all BMXers. Mm-hmm. Lee Donovan was a BMXer. Lopes was a BMXer. Eric was a BMXer. Cully was a BMXer. Miles Rockwell.
Even right now, Chris Blevins was a BMXer, and he's our best.
So on the gravity side, we've done very well. Not lately, but well, I shouldn't say it. Gwen's not that old. He's been hitting pretty hard.
We actually have a new junior talent that's coming up pretty good right now.
Who's that?
He's on Frameworks, and wow, the name is totally escaping.
That's okay. Doesn't matter. Yeah,
Colorado kid. Something's in the water.
I don't follow it as much because we don't do downhill races anymore. You just kind of get to know the kids because you're in
I get
doing a downhill race.
They all come and racing.
We see the enduro kids more, but we've done well on the gravity side over the years.
So if you rather had the choice, I've actually been to one of your Super Ds and blew my lungs out. I have to question, would you rather have a Super D or an Enduro?
Oh, Enduro. It's more. So Super D, a guy named Ron Lindley actually is technically the father of Super D.
Really?
Started in Utah. And the premise for it was that at the end of the day, you're doing a cross-country ride and you finish up somewhere and you're at the top of the mountain and it's a race to get home. 5 or 6 guys. Makes sense. Who's going to get
Who's
there
finishing their cross-country ride at the top of the hill? You never
in Park City. They do.
What?
Well, meaning you're there.
Okay.
And you got to get there.
Okay.
So, in Park City, everything just goes up.
Yeah, it seems like.
And that's where he put on a series of races in Utah for years. Ron's a great guy, but I always credit him with the father of Super D. And then we got it to become part of the national series because we were so involved in the national series.
So you had a Super D champion.
Yep.
It just seems a little to me. It's not even around really anymore.
No, but it morphed into enduro.
Okay. So that's just pure enduro then.
Yeah, it was just we did one run in Super D.
Yeah.
And then it just morphed into, because for a while there we ran the national series, myself and Jeff
was
Frost.
Norba.
It wasn't Norba anymore. Well, I guess it still was Norba National. It was. So Jeff Frost and I, a buddy of mine who still works at Sea Otter, we've been working together for 30 years probably. We ran the national series for a couple of years, and because it was struggling, and we just
was this side by side with Norba or combined with
Norba?
No.
They had kind of when Phil Melbourne left USA Cycling / Norba, the whole national series kind of was crumbling, and a guy named Rick Sutton, who was the business partner of Frank Johannan, who owns Sea Otter. They own Sea Otter together.
Okay.
It's kind of a crazy. I got more history in my head that I don't share with anybody. Not that I could care less, because to me it's like, oh, who wants to hear that shit?
We do.
So Frank and Rick were partners. Norba was faltering. Rick was a marketing guy, and he decided he could come in and take over the series.
Okay.
And make it keep going, because it was big back then. Well, lo and behold, he took it over and ran it for a couple of years. We had a lot of big, we had Sobe as a sponsor, and he brought in some good out of the industry sponsors, but the numbers were starting to go
dwindle.
like this. And so he got out. Frosty and I thought, well, we could make this work. We're the grinders,
Yeah.
We'll sleep on the ground if we have to. And so we sort of took it over, inherited it, and we ran it for a couple of years and had fun with it, had a great time, but the numbers were just, when you're trying to make your living on entry fees and not on sponsorship dollars, you're sort of.
And what years were these? This was, what would we say?
Be like 210, 211.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this was towards the, because when did really Norba's kind of get to its finish line then?
So the first national series that we did in Big Bear was 89, and I bet you we had a 20-year run.
Okay.
So,
to early 2000s.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe into the 2000s.
Yeah, so I would say National Series wasn't really Norba then. It was its own thing.
Right, it wasn't the Norba.
Yeah.
It
but obviously it was the team of Norba guys. Right, things like that. Yeah,
exactly.
okay. So, I mean, all right, I'm just trying to figure out the inner lines of it. And then, and so at that point, Norba's on its down, and then you take over the National Series, and it's having its rough patches, right, and everything like that. Is it at that time, do you see Americans realizing they have to have a career, but it has to be in Europe? Is that when did Americans realize that they have to just be in Europe?
Well, see, I don't think they ever realized that because there wasn't enough money then to go there, And you look at it now, there's only a few companies that support like a Chris Blevins.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story of how the industry, I remember, I can't remember who told me this, Bob Hadley, Craig Kundig. In the early days, it was all these bike companies. Gary Klein and Gary Fisher had his company, and Tom Ritchie had his company, and Greg Turner. There were all these bike companies, lots of parts companies. Somebody said someday the big 3 or 4 are going to own all of them. And slowly it happened.
You're right.
I mean, Gary Klein, remember riding with him in Moab back in the day when we used to go to the Moab Festival. Nice guy, innovative. I can't remember who bought his company. It's fortunate that some of these companies still exist.
Yeah.
Because things got absorbed and business is tough, and now you got specialized. I think GT's struggling now too.
GT's done.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's done.
That's crazy. So you got specialized, you got Trek.
Yeah, and I've heard that they're in a financial situation. But Giant makes pretty much everyone's bikes.
Everybody.
The private labels probably
they make
what helps
all the
keep
frames,
them.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's their thing.
Yeah, but they still sell a pretty decent amount of bikes here in the U.S. and around the world and stuff. But those are the big 3. Yeah, it's the big 3 that run the.
But see, so that's how the industry is just. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy
one Taiwanese brand and then 2 U.S. brands. You know. Yeah.
Right.
And the understanding of marketing, and it's a unique path, right? But
so I contend that today there are more people racing their bikes
than maybe
today
back
than
then.
there were back then.
But it's just so spread out.
It's spread out.
Yeah. Because
So
you
like
don't
I
see an XC guy racing downhill. You don't, and they're not all doing it out. Sea Otter, I guess, would be the only last race that really has everything at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there might be some that we don't know, but in general, I would say yes.
Yes.
You can race enduro, slalom, downhill, and cross country,
and
gravel.
Oh yeah, and road,
yeah, right. Oh, Sea Otter's a unique animal. It's been a fun place for me to work for over 30 years. We started there timing slalom.
And that was the first. You weren't even timing the other stuff. Were they even timing it back then? They didn't.
They had was cross country. There was no downhill, and there was slalom. And Chris Riddle, who was just here this weekend working with me, he's been timing my races since the 80s. He and I went up there under a 10x10 canopy in the mud, trying to drain the water out because he's like, we can't sit here all day long like this because slalom is a process, as you know. And that was the first thing we did at Sea Otter was time slalom for a couple of years.
And then
it
moved into
we
XC
were doing downhill races, and we kind of got to know Rick and Frank, and we said, you guys should put on a downhill race here, and we'll time it. And they found a little place to put on a downhill race, and I mean, literally
same spot that it's now, or different spot?
Same place.
Same spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've been timing that since they started, and every year there are anywhere between 1,000 and 1,200 downhillers every year.
It is crazy.
Freaking awesome. It's
all right. So then it's because the course is almost the same, and okay, the bikes have changed though.
Oh, yeah.
But my question is to you, which one's faster? Have we actually gotten to a better place with bikes, or is it just the athlete is still only as good as they can get? Or where, you know what I mean? Like,
That's
because I mean,
that's interesting.
because we have all the travel in the world, we have the best dynamics,
And I'll bet you if you look at it, I'll bet you could put somebody on a freaking hardtail or a non-suspended bike and they go about as fast on that sea otter course because it ain't that gnarly.
That's what I mean.
I would agree with you, Austin. I would say that if we took 10 of the top pros,
yes,
here's a hardtail or here's a non-suspended bike.
yeah.
I'd like to go non-suspended. Give them
You
non-suspended
just
front
want to
suspension
suffer. All right.
just to see. And I'd be interested to see that. That'd actually be a fun thing to do at Sea Otter. You should tell Frank that. It'd be kind of fun.
It's the after party on Sunday, or
Yeah. Like, let's go out here and see who can go,
yeah.
who can get close to their time with just front suspension.
Well, we'll put the real money on the line for that race.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
I like that. But yeah, so we've seen. It's been I tell you, when I look back, because there's times, as you know, when you're in business that you go, man, this sucks. I would say that if I could, I wouldn't rewrite any of it.
Really?
We had more fun.
That's rad.
We had, I was very blessed with a partner, business partner, that we got along very well. We both were hardworking, just dumbasses that we just, we were grinders.
You beat them into submission, you know?
You just worked hard.
Yeah.
And everybody that worked, I mean, we call it the Team Big Bear family because, I mean, literally, Dee, who works for me, her kids work for me. Janet Pecoraro worked for me. Her daughters work for me. Her granddaughters work for me. It's just crazy. I mean, Janet worked for me for over 30 years. Dee's worked for me for over 30 years. Sam, God rest her soul, she was like my second mother. She worked for me she was the longest. She was like 35 years she worked for me before she passed away.
From the beginning, then, I'm guessing.
She ran the bike shop. Dee's daughter worked and ran the bike shop for a while. I mean, I keep pointing over there. That's Dee's sitting
They're
over
all
there.
hanging out.
Sorry, folks. That's Dee's sitting over there. And so we were lucky. I mean, so I go up I was on a bike trip with my buddy Mickey, and this was just 7 or 8 months ago, and we stopped at the Marin Cycling Museum, which is also where the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame is, and lo and behold, Joe Breeze is there. So again, Joe Breeze, Gary Fisher, Tom Ritchie, and Charlie Kelly are considered the forefathers of mountain biking. Walk in the door, Joe Breeze is there. I get 2 hours with Joe Breeze in the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, just he and I and Mickey. It was freaking awesome. And then to walk around.
It's funny to hear because to us, you're a little bit of a legend of yourself, and then you have legends. It's kind of funny, It's
So Mickey and I had just gone and ridden Mount Tam, which is technically the birthplace of mountain biking.
Okay.
Like the birthplace. Little did we know we were on the wrong side of the mountain.
All right.
We rode up some old railroad grade that goes to the top, and so we get talking to Joe. He says, we rode Mount Tam. And he says, where'd you go? Told him, he says, no, the repack was on the other side. But got 2 hours with him and got to walk around and look at, I think Miles Rockwell's bike was in there. There's just legendary stories. Cindy Whitehead is famous for doing a thing up in the Sierras where, 5 miles into the bike race, she broke her seat. It's a 50-mile bike race.
What do you do?
The freaking woman rode 45 miles with a broken freaking seat, not to be able to sit down.
No dude would ever do it.
She is legendary. Yeah. She was a national champion for a couple of years. Cindy White, she was amazing.
No person would even do that nowadays.
They just
they're weak compared to that.
Oh hell! If they get a flat tire, they quit. Done.
Yeah.
I did a thing for a couple of years when I do all these high school when the high school kids were here. Hey, how many of you are carrying a tire, a tube, and something to fix your tire? Said,
What's
"Okay,
that?
all you kids didn't raise your hand. All the parents that are with these kids, raise your hand." And I look at him and say, "You're a bunch of dumbasses. The bicycle's to be ridden. You need to be able to ride it.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to fix the chain. You need to be able to make it into a single speed if you have to." And I go back to Cindy Whitehead riding her bike 45 miles without being able to sit
Without
down.
a seat. I don't. You would die. Like, I don't even know how your legs would have to lock
Nobody
up.
knows how she did it.
No way.
I'm telling you.
It's also amazing. Women have kids and still do. I mean, there's no way I'd push a freaking something that big out of me and ever want to do anything
The shit
again.
that happened back in the days. I remember being at a national race at Summit, and the fields back then were super competitive. They were
And when define competitive, like
10 or
like
well, when you you go to
their attitudes or just
No.
the way they race.
like 15 guys
okay,
and
to win.
15 women could win the race any day. Now, granted, you go to a World Cup and it's
Yeah, it's like 5.
but it's so you got guys like Rishi Grewal and Ned Over and Tinker, and you realize back then the target time for a men's race was 2 hours and 45 minutes to 3 hours and 15 minutes.
No way.
Swear to God. They were the most fit athletes in the world. I guarantee you couldn't find anybody that had bigger lungs and
Their
stronger
chest
legs.
just blowing their heart out.
I'm telling you, I saw some of the most epic races. Tomac. I watched, so they're racing laps at Snow Summit, and there's a crowd in the front. I might be wrong, and Tinker would have to tell me. You know, Ned's probably in it, and Tomac's in it, and Rishi's in it, and
all the good guys.
all the good guys
Yeah.
at that time are in it, and Tinker gets a flat.
Okay.
The guy fixes it like in under a minute.
No way.
Swear to
Back
God.
then, there wasn't like was there
I'm telling
CO2
you,
setups?
they were
and
all. I don't know how.
tubes still
I
then,
never
right?
asked him how he did it, but I'm telling you, I don't know if they ran an
Yeah.
extra tube in there or what they did, and he gets back to the front of the pack with the lead group. It's like a crazy effort, and then they dice it out. And I don't even remember who won, but those guys seriously, 245 to 315. We're down to UCI standards now are I think 130 to 145.
Yeah, you're basically 90
or maybe
minutes.
I think 130 to 145.
Yeah. On a
And
2.5 mile course.
And a lot of that's
3.
TV driven.
Yeah,
and I
obviously,
get it.
yeah,
You're trying to bring money into the sport. You can't cover a 3.5 hour freaking
Yeah, it's
mountain
hard,
bike race.
for sure.
But those guys and girls were animals. And then back then, the women's field in the downhill was deep too.
Really?
Oh, you had 10 or 15 U.S. women that could win a freaking.
So we were having a lot of Euros come over back then?
That we did not a ton, but when we did the World Cups, we had obviously an influx of them, and there was some really great European women downhillers, and of course, obviously one of the greatest downhiller of all time. I got a mind block for the French kid. 11 world championships he won.
Who was?
Nicolas Fouillet.
Oh, really?
11. I think he won 2 or 3 junior net world championships.
Okay.
And he consequently
count
won
those.
like 7 or 8 freaking in a row.
Really?
Nicolas Fouillet. Yeah.
Okay. Let's hit one quick pause. You get another beer.
Okay.
I'm going to switch how this camera is a little bit.
Okay.
And we're going to just hit the pause real quick.
Perfect.
Grab another beer. I'm going to grab one more, and we're going to keep going.
This episode is brought to you by Maxima Racing Oils, a leader in high-performance lubrications for over 4 decades. If you're into riding hard, racing fast, or just keeping your bike running smoothly, Maxima's bicycle products line has you covered. From chain lubes and suspension fluids to cleaners and protectors, the bike-specific product line is built to perform. And here's something cool. Not only do pros use it, so do brands building your bike. Maxima supplies OEM suspension, brake fluids to people like RockShox and SRAM. So if you're riding their components, chances are you're already running Maxima. Check out their full lineup on MaximaUSA.com and level up your bike maintenance game. Also, next time you go to checkout, put in Insider MTB to get yourself a good discount on everything Maxima.
Cool. All right. Cheers to that one, eh? We're back. We took a quick little break, you guys. Thank you for sticking along this long. We're about an hour into this, and I feel like this was going to be a long one. I mean, you have so much. I mean, 40 years can't just be unraveled in 20 minutes. So I love unraveling your mind on all this different stuff, and I have to ask, do you like the direction cycling has gone?
Oh, I don't have a problem with it. It's just
Okay.
everything's an evolution. Like I said,
I mean, the rider and even
I've been
just the way we're going, right?
I've been so fortunate. I mean, okay, so two people credited with putting rear shocks on bikes, Dan Hannebrink and Brian Skinner. Brian Skinner's in the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame. Dan should have been in the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame. Owned a company called Hannebrink Bikes. I rode my bike with both of those guys. When Brian came up, Dan showed up at a ride one time in Big Bear, and we went, "What are you doing with that shock on the back of that thing?" And he had a whole dissertation about how better traction, blah, 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 on and on. And Dan was a friend of mine. He passed away a couple of years ago.
And what'd you say to that?
Well,
You were like,
back
"No
then we
way."
were looking at we were so wrapped up in our thin tires. I mean, I raced the Kamikaze on 175s. It's a skinny ass tire.
Yeah.
That's like what guys are riding gravel on now.
Yeah.
And
They're
if you've
even wider than that, I feel like.
And if you've ever raced a Kamikaze, it's hair raising. And the pros race at a different level than I did, but no suspension and cantilever brakes. So the fun part of it.
You're like, what are you
I was thinking
doing,
about
you
something
know?
when I walked over there. There's so many things when I look back on my involvement in the sport. And I've said it to my staff before. How lucky were we to live all that innovation? Not many people can say, I play basketball. I wasn't there when they put the frickin' basket on the side of the wall.
And
know
you
what I
guys
mean?
are for cycling.
It's crazy. And so, I don't know how long motocross has been around, but I'm sure, like my buddy Tom, who's my age, he raced back when the Europeans first came over. And Jeff was a motocross guy. Point again, they just went to the pool.
There's a pool here?
Yeah, there's a pool. We should have been by the pool.
We should
Could have been in the pool.
Dude.
So I was thinking about it when we walked over. All the stuff that we used to go to Interbike. And I remember when GT came out with this bike that had fenders on it and all this weird-looking suspension. It looked like a motorcycle. And we said, that's a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
When 29 wheels came out, we thought, that's not going to catch on. But we've seen all of that. Front suspension, rear, springs in the suspension. Ask people, have you ever heard of a height right?
I don't know. Is it a ratio right like for motocross? Or what?
Height right.
What's a height right?
So what's big on mountain bikes right now? The freaking seats that go up and down. There was a thing called a height right. It was nothing.
Really?
You look it up. It was nothing more than a spring that clamped onto your seat post and onto your top tube, and you'd have to reach back and undo your quick release and then push on it, and it would go down. Swear to God, height right.
Isn't that just an easy? I mean,
Well,
but
then when you released, it would pop back up. That was you're right. You could I'm telling you. So I was so fortunate to see all of this stuff. It's almost mind-boggling to me. Like I rode with Gary Fisher one time in Moab. I wasn't like in awe of Gary Fisher. It was like that dude's one of the guys.
One of the guys.
He borrowed a tube from me. I'll never forget that story. We were on a ride called Flat Pass, and we're out riding, and he gets a flat. Anybody got a tube? Thinking, what a dumbass. You're Gary Fisher, didn't carry a tube, so I gave him a tube. And at that time, I didn't have any money. I went. He says, "I'll give you a new one. I'll get you one back when we get back into town." I found him. I said, "Gary, can I get a tube back?" "I don't have one." I'm like, "Son of a bitch!
What the fuck?
I don't have a bunch of tubes laying around. They were like $3.95 a piece."
Oh, yeah, it's how we're going to start. My commercial for the video is going to be Gary Fisher stealing your tube. It's going to be a wanted poster.
I will never forget that.
We're waiting for this tube.
And my buddy Don, who's 91, he and I used to go to the Moab Festival all the time. He'd tell you the same story. Remember that time Gary Fisher took your tube and he gave you a new one? Yeah. We were so fortunate. We went to the Moab Festival for years. But what I was going to say when I'm going back to all the innovation, probably the biggest thing to me that's actually really, 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 really fun and probably most dear to my heart is all of the kids that worked for me over the years. I had some of the best. Pat and I, because it was always Pat and I, had some of the best kids in town work for us. And then my son included, the caveat to that is that Matt Fonda, who's 45 years old, and his brothers are 47, his brother's 50, they both still ride bikes. I've gone on a couple trips recently with Matt, mountain biking. I'm going on a trip with my son, mountain biking. We're going to go up to visit Matt's brother Mike, and he mountain bikes, and his kids mountain bike. So the influence of being able to provide people with a lifetime sport.
Yeah.
Like my son is big. He's got a garage full of freaking mountain bikes. My grandkids got mountain bikes. To me, that's just
That's winning for you.
It bring a tear to your eye if you think about it too much, because it's just so. If I was a bowling guy and my grandkids didn't like to bowl, I mean, my grandkids aren't into that. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
It's like, wow. You want your daughters to ride motocross, right?
Yeah.
They're probably not.
Yeah.
But if they did, you'd go, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in.
And I get it's kind of crazy I'm kind of amazed that you still love to ride bikes. I've been hearing that from everything you're talking about. You still like to ride bikes. Everything that's changed, and at a certain point, it's like, you know what? I'm kind of getting old. I'm over riding bikes. There's
what's amazing to me, I have buddies of mine that rode back in the day, and I go, why don't you still ride?
Yeah.
My son and I are going on a 3-week mountain bike trip.
And
he's a teacher, so he's off.
Okay.
What we started is we were going to ride our bikes across the country, because I've always, for some reason, I've always wanted to do that. I don't know. I've hitchhiked across the country. I've driven across the country. Everybody has.
Tom, I'm seeing a whole different side of you right now. You hitchhiked across the country?
Oh yeah, twice.
What?
Yeah, I drove. I drove. Well, the first time I flew out, stayed with a buddy of mine that I went to college with, and then another buddy of mine, Ian McPherson, came out, and we decided we were going to hitchhike across the country. We just wanted to do it.
East to west, west to east? Which way did we go?
West to east.
Okay.
And so we did that, and then I did it again.
No way.
A couple years later, I remember But the point is, still riding mountain bikes is something I love to do, and so my son's a teacher, David, and so he and I we wanted to ride. I said,
lives in Big Bear, teacher in Big Bear, or
yeah, he teaches in Big Bear.
Okay.
So I said, so let's do it like some friends of ours did it years ago. They rode across the country. Two guys that helped me out at bike races. They're older than me, and they did it in 3 summers because they were both educators. So they did 3 weeks, 3 weeks, and 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I thought, we're going to do the same thing. You and I are going to ride across the country. So got thinking about it when I was talking with Joe Breeze, at the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame. He says, I told him about it. He said, oh, that's great. He says, I think it was him and Tom Ritchie, or maybe him and Gary Fisher, tried to set a record of riding their tandem across the country. And they made it to Iowa. And he looked at me, and he said to me, he says, you don't want to ride across Iowa. Because he says, so I wouldn't necessarily ride across the country if I were you. And it changed my attitude. And I thought to myself, we're not road riders. It was just a thing I wanted to do. And so I called David. I said, David, we're not riding across the country. We're going to do 3 summers, and we're going to go find all the best mountain biking we can in North America.
Yeah.
Just because when I went with
what's on the list then?
What's that?
What's on the list?
So we're going to start at a place called Wilder Ranch up near Santa Cruz. I rode that with my buddy Mickey like 7 or 8 months ago. There's this weird little great ride we found in the
I've never even heard of this.
It's just north of Santa Cruz, right on 101.
Okay.
101. It goes along it's nothing, like it's not, it's just, there's this double track that goes along the freaking ocean. There's cliffs and seals, and then you cross over the highway and you're in the redwoods.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's awesome.
So are these just like bike packing or just riding whatever? We're
going to drive there, park in the parking lot, ride our bikes, and sit and drink beer.
Okay. That's okay.
That's the way we do it.
I love it.
My buddy, I had a couple of buddies of mine want me to go on a bike packing trip. I said, and who's going to drive SAG for us?
Yeah.
Because at the end, I want to drink beer.
Yeah,
that's why we ride our bikes. So,
What's next? Is there
So
any
we're gonna
other
go. We're gonna. I've just so basically get on what trail forks or anything like that.
Okay,
and
so
you
you're
find
just
stuff.
looking on
So
trail
we're
forks
just
trying to
looking.
find it that
We did.
way.
The second ride we'll probably do will be. We found this ride in the redwoods. A little bit illegal. You ride through the national park for a little while, and then you drop onto what I believe was old Highway 1.
Oh,
We're in the redwoods, and it's paved.
what?
Swear to God, I could show you pictures. It was the craziest thing. Mickey and I are riding along, and we're going, this must have been the old highway at one time. And then it pops out, and you get out of the redwoods, and you have to ride through this overgrown trail, and you wind up at this beach, and then we did the road ride back because there was no going back the same way we came because it was up here, and we wound up at the beach. But so we'll just go on trail forks. I want to go. We'll go to Mount Rainier. I got a friend of mine lives in Mount Hood. I want to go right up on Vancouver Island.
Okay.
Never been there. So,
Like, is there a specific spot or?
nope, we'll figure that out when we get there.
Okay.
One thing about David and I, we're both in the same mode. We don't want to it's not we're going to go here specifically and here.
So we're not worried about like, hey, we got to go to these certain parks
No.
or this and that.
No, we're
It's
not
just-
park guys either.
Yeah.
So we're
Okay.
not.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, mostly when people will say, hey, I'm going to go do a trip of North American places to ride, it's like, oh, I'm going to go to Whistler. Then
No.
you
Like
know.
I read, you just search it.
Yeah.
I looked up something. There's some network of trails up on the Oregon coast that are supposedly cool. Never know until you get there.
You never know until you get there.
Well, we did a thing. Matt and I went on a trip, and we did. It's called the Black Canyon Trail in
Yeah.
Arizona.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. You liked it.
Freaking awesome.
What time of year did you do it?
We did it a couple of months ago.
Okay, so it was good weather.
It was. We did 3 days on it.
Was there any river flowing?
So the first one.
Or?
What's that?
There's like because it was a chance of because there's rivers on that riverbed you cross.
Yeah, they weren't. They were flowing, but they weren't.
They weren't bad.
Yeah, they weren't out of control or anything. But the cool thing about that one was it was just so. Was the desert was beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And we did a point to point, and we thought, well, we'll call an Uber.
Did you really? You have Uber. I just feel like you're.
Oh no, I don't. I don't
No,
have
you
it. He
don't.
has it.
Yes.
No, I don't have it. So we get to what's it called Rock Springs.
Yep.
There's a little town north of Anthem.
Yep.
They famous for their pies.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, did you get the pie or no? Or?
No, we had, the best part is, so Matt was hammered by the time we finished that ride. I don't know why. He just was. And I went inside. He was outside trying to get us an Uber. And I went inside, sat down. Waitress comes over, and she says, so what can I get you? I said, I need a cold beer. What kind you got? Now, I'm a Budweiser drinker, but my second to go to is PBR in a can. And she said, we got Pabst Blue Ribbon. I said, bring me one. And while he's outside, I took a picture of it. He's sitting, he's dying. He's about done. And I'm sitting and drinking a cold PBR. So we said to the girls, so yeah, we're trying to get back to, we were like 15 miles, 20 miles north.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if I was getting off work, I'd take it, but I'm working for a couple more hours. He finally, 20 minutes later, Matt finally comes in. He drinks a bunch of water. I'm on my third PBR. And
That's basically water.
yeah. And she goes, okay, the maintenance woman's going to drive you back up to your location.
Oh, hey.
True story. She pulls up in this beat-up old Toyota. I'm telling you right now, it shouldn't be on the highway. The tires are bald. She looks like she's...
Are you regretting your decision at this point?
It's like we're taking the ride because we ain't riding back up there. So Matt and I look at each other and said, all right. So I got in the back. It was, the little cab, and I'm in the back like this and throw our bikes in the back, and he's in the front. And both of us said, woo, that was dicey. She's driving along. It's kind of wobbling like that. I'm serious. It was this beat-up old truck. We got there.
You got there.
And then the other time we actually wound up, we took a shot the next time. We did another one, and we got an Uber.
Tom, this is a whole other side I'm seeing here. I'm blown away. Maybe you're better into just having adventures with Tom. That's the new thing. It's adventures with Tom. Can you survive?
Alaska was a whole fun trip too. That was very fun. Matt and I went to Baja too. Yeah, oh, that was some great riding down there. That was
Did you start in the U.S. and ride in, or
No,
was
no,
it
we
like
drove down to La Paz.
La Paz? Okay,
Yeah,
and then would you go up or down? Where'd you go from? I mean, obviously.
We went south of La Paz, a place called La Ventana.
Okay, yeah.
Famous as a windsurfing place.
Yeah.
They got a super network of trails there.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
Super. Like, freaking fun. Fast. Like, you could ride loops, and then fast flowing, you wind up right on the freaking Sea of Cortez.
Really?
On the beach. It's freaking awesome.
Okay.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
Because it's crazy how, like, La Paz is kind of, it's really desert, and then you start hitting the greens, and it's like you're in this whole, when you're basically on the,
La Ventana is this weird little, like, it's a whole bunch of Canadians down there.
What?
And they work on the trails. They have a whole group of people that work on the trails. They're all
Canadians
well marked.
down in
They
Mexico.
use these little rocks and they paint on them with the name of the trail and everything. It's crazy. It's fun stuff.
I love
Yeah.
it.
But going back, to me, what I see the sport today is the high school thing and the kids racing is just, it's so refreshing. You know, I've been fortunate to go through all the old stuff and everything, and these kids don't know anything but 29-inch wheels and full suspension and, you know, $6,000 bikes and everything. And I'd love to impart my knowledge on them, but you know what? They don't give a crap. They could care less.
Can't even get him to run a tube.
So I just like watching them ride, you know, because when we're doing enduros, you get to talk to them at the top, and they're just polite. Mountain biking does. I'm telling you, the amount of, not that kids in other sports are bad or anything, but you know, we don't have overbearing parents. We don't have kids with attitudes. They all race and they all finish and they're all happy, and then they go over and they're on the pump track here at Vale Lake. They're having fun. It's like, that doesn't happen in football.
No.
You know, football game's over with. It's like,
Get in the car, let's go.
Yeah, screw you guys.
Yeah.
You just kicked our ass. Here, I don't know. It just, when I'm here marking course at Vale on a Wednesday in the winter, and all of a sudden, you know, the kids come running around. I do this little, I don't even know what the hell it's called, Instagram. I don't do it myself. I video it and I send it to some girl in New Jersey, and she posted. Look at that. Meg posted. So I just did two of them. Meg posted. That's funny. I did two of them today. That's funny. Meg posted. That's actually funny. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So I sent it to Meg in New Jersey, and she posted. I've never seen it. I don't even have it. You know, I guess I have an Instagram account, but I don't see it. So I do this thing: get up, get out, get motivated, get riding, because we are racing. And I'm here during the week marking course, and kids ride by and say that to me all the time. It's awesome. It's like, it's just, I love the kids. The kids are the best.
So then, is Enduro your favorite over everything? Is that?
It reminds me of the old days when we were timing a lot of downhill races. You get to interact directly with the rider.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing cross country, and I get out in front of the group, I give my speech. You know, goo packets in your back pocket. No outside mechanical assistance, no earbuds, blah, blah, blah. And I interact with the kids, but then they leave. And, you know, but week in and week out at Enduro, the kid shows up in front of your face, just him or her, and you get to know them, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And my staff loves being up there doing that, because it's just, it's interaction with the kids. And, I mean, we've transitioned. Last year was the first time ever, well, it would have never happened back in the day, that I have more juniors racing than I do adults.
Hey,
both.
I'll tell you from, from the Big Mountain Enduro and knowing some other companies and other promoters is that youth is now bigger. You know, I can tell you coming up for an event next weekend or this weekend coming up, we have more youth Enduros than we do actual.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Would have never thought I'd ever see that.
Coming from,
like I said, they were all weird. Wow, there's two girls racing in the cross-country race that are under 12 or 13 or 15. You go, wow, that's weird. Now, it's fun, though. It just...
It just makes me wonder, did we, back when it was great in the 80s and whatever, 90s and whatever, when Norba was kicking ass,
right?
Was there a question maybe we dropped the ball? We didn't have enough great youth programs to get the next generation ready. You know, to
I would say so. When Matt Fitzinger got NICA started, it was it should have happened 10 years or 15 years early. Not it should have. That's not. I shouldn't say that. Not his responsibility for bringing all the youth up.
Yeah.
But when that happened, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it resulted in a world champion in Kate Courtney. So, do we wish it would have happened 30 years ago? Would have been great.
Yeah.
When I talk to and run into the end of the night last night, we're cleaning up, and Great Oaks is one of the teams that comes out and races with us all the time. And they're a big, strong team and a lot of kids. And, the dads and the moms are sitting over there. They just finish eating and feeding all the kids, and the kids are all out doing their thing.
Hoodlum stuff.
And they go, "Oh, Tom, this is great." And the enthusiasm, even from the parents, to be there every weekend, just like a soccer mom or soccer dad. It's a lot of work, but, they come with game, and they love it because once their kids are done racing, they're off riding their bike somewhere, having a great time. So it's just a wonderful environment. And if we would have had that 30 years ago, maybe the U.S. would be in a different place.
Yeah.
But maybe you and I might have this conversation 10 years from now and go, wow, we got 2 more world champions, 3 more world champions. Getting a world championship is tough.
Yeah. Competition's
high. But even to have kids that are competitive at a high level is awesome.
Yeah.
So to me, I think it's just, I love the high school thing. I got an email today from a parent. There's this program that showed up called Stoked. I'm not quite sure what their premise is, but I have a feeling that it's a bunch of dads that got a bunch of their kids together that probably weren't your typical ball and bat type kids.
Stick and ball sport.
And they found mountain biking. And they come with like 10 or 12 kids. Man, I'm telling you. He sent me an email today, and they won the team championship because they just got so many kids. It's awesome. And I thought to myself, you know what? That's why we do this.
Yeah.
The dad's going, oh, the kids love it. We look forward to it. Can't believe it. I'm going, wow. That's why we do this, because that's just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the adult side is just, they're adults. They show up, they race their bike, and they go home. Not that they're bad people.
Yeah, but I get it.
I like the interaction. I have never lost enthusiasm.
I'm seeing that from you. Like, I'm seeing a whole, because I've always seen you from the outside of just the promoter hat on, running the races, right? And I get it. It's not a pressure cooker, but you're running. You're in charge. You got to get going places.
Got to get stuff done.
You do, completely.
But the thing that has always made it easy for me, just like your family doing the motocross stuff, is you love doing it.
Yeah.
So to me, I've been fortunate because in my mind, I've had the greatest job in the world for 40 years. I mean, people's, wow, you look good. Thinking to myself, well, I'm outside all the time. I said, I don't work in an office. I don't look haggard from freaking getting pounded on by somebody like you. Life is fun, right?
Yeah.
Your parents, life is fun.
I mean, the fact that you're still riding and you're loving it, and you're telling me about these trips where you're ended up at the best pies in the United States,
It was pretty cool. That was actually really fun. That was like, wow.
You sound like this awesome teenage kid right now, the way you're talking about.
Well, but it's kind of crazy because I got all kinds of trips, and so. Just this little sidebar, I spent a fair amount of time in the last 7 or 8 years taking care of my wife who had cancer. And so we were kind of locked in.
Yeah.
And she's not a traveler. She never was. And so before she was sick, I did a lot of these trips on my own, Well, actually, I rode my bike to Alaska to decide what I was going to do with my life because I had to find myself. So I found myself when I married my wife. After that trip.
Good choice.
But I did, I had a bunch of buddies. We did the Moab Festival. I remember going to Crested Butte for the Pearl Pass ride, but it rained so much I left and went back to Moab because, I've always wanted to, I've always traveled. We've done the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. You ever ridden that?
I haven't.
Ooh. The Rainbow Rim Trail?
Good.
I just rode that again with my son. It was it's 19 miles outside of the park. And it goes into canyons that are not on the rim, but there's a bunch of sections that ride right along the rim of the Grand Canyon.
Okay, is this kind of like the Moab White Rim Trail, kind of similar, where you can?
Yeah. We've done the White Rim Trail.
You've done the White Rim.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We did it. We did
easy
3
stuff.
nights. 3 nights. Oh no, Moab. Moab is one of my, but it's, so the point is my wife was sick, and so she passed away a year and a half ago. And I'm just now, it's like, man, I just got to go to all these cool places now.
You look at life a little differently.
You do.
Yeah.
Because her life was short, and you just want to pack it all in.
Yeah.
And just it's, and the thing with mountain biking is, as you know, of just being involved in any sport when you love it, you just want to do it. And to me, what I love about it is being out like here. We're outside. We're not conventional guys.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy that, I don't want to go on a vacation to a resort. I don't want to go on a cruise. Shoot me before I go on a cruise.
Yes,
like, please,
exactly.
Austin, somebody take a gun out and shoot me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on a cruise. Yeah. Why would I want to be on a cruise? I want to be somewhere where there's not.
I'm not going to Disneyland. I'm over that.
No.
Shit. Yeah, I hate it.
No, yeah. You're going to be going.
I've already
you
gone.
got girls.
I've gone enough, but I more than I'd like to count. I'd rather be like, hey, let's go on a camping trip. Let's go do something in the woods. Let's go have that way. It's life experiences, you know.
All right, I'm going to tell one story.
All right, one. Tom, we're getting them all out today.
Early days of going to Moab. It's just going to be hard one to tell without being. Well, it's an adult audience.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, we cuss, we talk, we drink beers. I mean, we're good.
So, my buddy Don and I are going to Moab, and I used to just like to take the road less traveled.
And what's that to there?
So you go the back way. You could, back in the day when we started going to Moab, you'd go up to 15.
Yep.
You'd have to get off the 15 to get to the 70 because the 70 didn't connect to the 15.
Yeah, over the mountain right there. So
you go through Richfield.
Yes, you go through Okay. Yes.
Yeah, you had to go through Richfield to get to the 70. So we did that, I think, the first year in my Isuzu Trooper 2. 2-door, 4-cylinder.
Just
barely could go over. Barely could go over 55.
No way.
Seriously, oh yeah, with bikes on the roof, and the wind blowing, no air conditioning.
No.
So we decided we're going to go a different way. We're just exploring. So we get into a place called Red's Canyon, which is a state park just outside of Bryce Canyon.
Yep.
It is now famous for Thunder Mountain. Okay? Don and I are there. This is 1980. I'd have to go back and look at my photos, but I'm going to say 86, 87. Get out of the car, and we ride up a thing called Butch Cassidy Wash. And we ride up there, and it opens up into, looks like freaking Bryce Canyon. Well, now it's a real ride. I would bet you we were probably the first guys that ever ride there on the bicycles. I'm telling you, talking 1987.
Yeah.
So we leave there, and we drive 12. We stop at Bryce Canyon, I think, looked at it. And then we're driving 12, and we get to a town called Boulder. And I had already looked on a map, and I wanted to go drive through Capitol Reef National Park on the dirt road called the Burr Trail.
Yeah.
Just a dirt trail. So we're driving along. So we just wanted to ride our bikes. We didn't know what we were going to get into. So finally there's this thing called Muley Twist Canyon. And we said, all right. Looked at it, thought, we're going to go ride Muley Twist Canyon. So we get out, get our bikes, and we just ride into this wash. And I wasn't quite sure where it was going to take us. And riding around. All of a sudden we see a car. Some guy's getting a Hummer. True story. They run around the car and they jump in the other side. And Don and I just ride on by like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And then we got to the end, and there was a sign you could go over and look at the water pocket fold. And we've always said over the years, that guy will never get a Hummer out in the woods ever again. Because he was, seriously, it was
never
40 miles from nowhere, from Boulder.
He thought he was good.
And this guy's like, dude, what the hell? It took me an hour to convince her to do that. Get naked outside, and two dudes come up on mountain bikes. He probably, what are those? Oh, love, that's always one of my...
The government's tracking me at that point, you know?
No way that shit happens.
So, what, I was okay. So I was kind of surprised when we had the U.S. Cup. We were doing the live stream, and I'm setting stuff up.
Right.
And you pull up in your truck, and I see your bike in the back. And maybe he just takes his bike. And you got that thing out, and you started riding. And I was like, dude, it's fucking race weekend. We got shit to do. And I was just blown away that you still had the ability and want to just keep going and riding. And my question is what is that your only bike? What's your assassin bike? What is your bike a pick then?
Well, Intense has been a sponsor of ours for a long time. And I like their bikes. I've got probably too many of them.
But if suspension level, like are you a 120 guy? You
know what?
500? What are we at?
You know what? I get a bike, I ride it, and I don't do maintenance on it. I don't fix the fork. I don't dial them in. I just get on and ride it.
Don't buy used Tom bikes, is what you're saying.
I don't. Austin, and I'm not trying to sound
and
like
you just ride whatever.
Yeah,
you don't care.
I got a younger brother, Richie. I love him dearly, and he's borrowed my bikes before. Like he's come out and he's borrowed my bike, and he's got to tweak everything. Like, bro, he's a lot younger than me, and he's like, I smell like, bro, stop, just get on it and ride it. Oh no, seat height. It's just he's got to adjust. I'm serious.
And you just
Jacob from Intense built that bike for me. I haven't moved the thing. Just get on and rode it, and you get used to it.
Yeah, but you don't care about suspension. You just ride a bike. You just want to ride a bike.
I just realized the other day. So I was riding. The other day I was riding in the La Quinta Cove, and I'm riding. I'm going, oh, it's a little more rough than I thought it was. I realized what happens sometimes when I pick the bike up. I move the rear shock. It was locked out. I've been riding it like that for a while. I just don't.
You just ride bike.
My son always says, Dad, when are you going to wash your bike? He'll take it and wash it for me.
No way.
It's a mountain bike. It's meant to be freaking ridden. It's not meant to be babied. He's always, oh, you got scratches in it. Really? It's a mountain bike.
So bike don't matter. That's out the door. You just ride whatever. That's
you ever ridden the San Juan Trail?
Oh, yeah.
So I'll tell you a story about that.
You climb that sucker? What are you, a climber and then down, or what do you shuttle? What do you got?
So we probably rode that thing 35 years ago.
On horseback.
No. A bunch of buddies of mine, we were all mountain bikers from Big Bear.
Yeah.
And some of us were more mountain bikers than others. And there's probably, I think there's like 10 of us. We were on a bachelor party for one of our buddies. 5 of us were probably serious, and the other 5 weren't. The crazy part about that is that I rode it a couple years ago. I was down there at a conference for Jersey Mike's. A friend of mine owned Jersey Mike's. And
had them for lunch.
He just sold the company for $8.2 billion.
Sounds like a good friend to have.
He is. He just flew us all to Florida on his private jet. But I look back at the pictures, because I have pictures of that ride. And the crazy part about that, when I rode it 3 or 4 years ago, it's a freaking hard ride.
Yeah.
It's freaking, to get all the way to the top.
Yeah.
And then we came down, but the 5 guys that didn't ride made it. Because back in the day, again, it was just, everything was an adventure.
Yeah.
Like, they'd walk, they'd push, whatever the hell it took to get to the end. And we stopped at that candy store. And I'll never forget, my buddy Bob, they had a jar of boiled or pickled eggs.
Yeah.
And everybody was hungry at this point in time. And he walks up and he goes in and he says, I want some pickled eggs. He says, how many? She says, I want the whole jar. The girl looks at him and says, I can't sell you the whole jar. He said, yes, you can. And she sold him the whole jar. And we sat outside, ate the eggs, and then went down 74 to the bottom.
No way.
Oh, yeah. It was fun stuff.
You live for the adventure. I see that,
Always.
Tom.
Always. We used to do a race.
Do you think that there needs to be – so then why aren't you running gravel races? Because that's an adventure type of thing, right? So I mean, you're running enduro races. Why aren't you putting these point-to-point things or these some Big Bear adventure, you know?
I've like you and your family, I am in this to make money, and I've done pretty much everything in the sport as far as putting on races. Like I said, who's put on a 12-hour downhill?
No one.
You
Super D's, Enduro.
Women's only, I think there's been 1 or 2 of those, but when we're doing 300 people, 4 up downhill racing we did for Fox Sports back in the day. Probably between Big Bear, Deer Valley, we've done probably 30 at least, maybe 35 Norba Nationals. We promoted the National Series, done a couple World Cups. I'm 67 years old, and I still love what I do, but I'm just as happy here at Vale Lake doing this with the kids as I am. I don't need to, I've had people say, you should do this. And I go, I don't need to do that. I've already done all that. You know what I mean? And you'll learn. We talked earlier before we started.
Yeah.
Your kids grow up quick. I'm to the point now, and the guys that I hang out with, that I grew up with, there's 10 of us, that we're in the fourth quarter, and all I'm looking for is more adventure.
Yeah.
And not all of them do. They're my Jersey buddy guys that I grew up with. They're not mountain bikers or anything. But I've got these young guys that like to ride, like Matt and Mike and Mickey and my son, and I'm gonna do as much of it as I can.
Yeah.
You should.
It's fun. There's nothing about it that's not fun.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
I love being outside. You go see new stuff. Riding through the. I should find that picture. I'm telling you, I got my favorite picture. I'll find it in a second here of us in the redwoods.
And so, okay,
this is this crazy ride we did. I'm gonna show it to you. It's crazy. I'll show.
Find that picture, and I have to ask you. So then you obviously have an in-ear at.
Okay, look at this.
Sorry, got it. We can see that camera can see it. Yeah.
Look at that. That's my
go.
buddy Mickey next to a redwood. We dropped in there, and I still believe that we were on Old Highway 1 because it was paved in there for a while. It was crazy. It was just, my favorite. I actually had that frame for Mickey.
Really?
Oh, look at that. I mean, look at that.
That is crazy.
It's just, so here's another story. So Mickey, he's my accountant. Been my
Your
accountant.
accountant, all right.
He's
Taking
been
the
my
accountant
accountant
out to the
forever.
wood.
But we started as racers back in the day because everybody raced. And he was a Cat 1 racer.
It's not like it is now.
140 pounds, freaking calves and thighs. Just Mickey was a freaking wrecking machine, okay? So this is just going into what has changed in the sport. So because there's a lot of naysayers out there about e-bikes. So I decided I want to go on a trip, and Mickey says, I'll go with you. Because he and I, we did a trip. We did 2 weeks in New Zealand on our bikes. We rode across the South Island. And then we did 2 weeks in Australia and rode our bikes over there. And so, but that was a long time ago. But Mickey got overweight, and he hadn't been riding. And I finally kept saying, Mick, I'm going on a trip, and you're coming. He says, I said, you bring your e-bike, and I'll ride my regular bike. And this was only, there was a date on that picture. I'll tell you when it was. There's a date on this. Let's see. It was August 18th. So not that, it was a year ago. Almost a year ago.
Yeah.
Without an e-bike, he wouldn't have gone on that trip.
Yeah.
So for 2 weeks, he rode his e-bike, and I rode my regular bike. And he had the time of his life.
Yeah.
And he's lost 24, 25 pounds now because he's back on the bike, doing the right things. But for those of you out there that don't like e-bikes, it puts a lot of people out there that wouldn't normally be on a bike.
Yeah. No, my dad e-bike, and he would never ride a regular analog. Like it's
e-bike. I hate that word.
God, are you acoustic?
I'm no. It's a mountain bike.
It's a mountain bike.
There should be mountain bikes
and
e-bikes.
Okay.
Mountain bikes and e-bikes. There's no analog.
Yeah, but then sometimes
that's bullshit. Don't take me backwards.
Yeah, but if
we are the mountain bikes.
If I tell a person who doesn't know e-bike in mountain bike world, they're like, "Are you talking about that thing my grocery getter?"
No,
you know where I'm going with that.
And I get that because what's funny is I was riding somewhere, and in the La Quinta Cove, and I'll come by somebody and go, "Oh, you're not on an e-bike." So I get it. It's sort of a weird.
It is.
But I don't. Yeah.
So then, all right. So
kind of grates on me.
Well, that'll lead me into my other then. So then, you obviously are like e-bikes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I love them. All right. What is that? The future of racing? Why isn't racing making that happen? You know what's up? You know.
I have a theory about that one.
Yeah.
Too. So when I'm out here working at Vale, and thank you, Eric Carter, for everything you do out here. And Clint, who owns the KOAs, his family owns the KOA. They've done a great job here.
They are helping mountain biking in California because you guys are. We'll get into that next.
No, 100%.
Yeah, go to the e-bike thing.
So my theory is that my race numbers have been going down slowly, enduro and stuff. I think what's happening is people are buying e-bikes, and you can come to a place like this. You just spend $6 or $7 grand on your e-bike, and you can session
all day
long.
You don't need shuttle. You don't need
Don't need a
freaking lift.
shuttle.
You don't need.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I want to ride down Fat Tire and Ladders and Spiralis, and if I can do it 5 times, or I can do it 10 times, I'm doing it 10 times. And when I'm here on a Wednesday, I watch and I see people go by. And literally, outside of when the high school kids are here training, I'd say 85% of them, 90% are e-bikes.
Yeah.
And so I think people have just bought e-bikes and they're having fun on them. Steve Blick from Shimano said one time, if you're not having fun, you shouldn't be riding. You know, when you're on your e-bike, you should be having fun. Something to that effect. It was like, and everybody I've ever put on an e-bike, even if they just ride from here around, they smile.
Yeah.
It's freaking a fun
Once
feeling.
you ride it, for sure. But
It's awesome.
So, are you just thinking? But like, why can't we get e-bike racing going?
I'll get.
That's what I'm worried.
I'll get 6 or 8 guys that will do enduro. We've tried it a couple times years ago when we were still doing UCI races with Show Air, and I think they're on their bikes to have fun.
Yeah.
Sea Otter finally dropped it.
Yeah, I know.
They got to 140, and Frank, being Frank and a business guy, I'm not gonna go out of my way to block out 2 hours of time for 140 riders.
Totally,
It's not happening.
Totally.
So
it's understandable.
And I get exactly.
Yeah.
I just think that an e-bike represents fun.
Yeah.
And people want to just have fun on it.
But what does that say for our industry when everyone is really pushing? E-bikes are 50% of the sales now. And if we're only having fun, what happens to racing? Because racing is...
I think it struggles.
It does. It struggles, and it sucks because I love watching racing, And, like...
I made my living on racing.
Yeah, I get it.
And I don't believe that we're going to overcome this phenomenon.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Is this a Strava fault? Because you can actually just time yourself and you just...
I would say, Austin, it's a combination of all of those things. A little bit, for me, what brings my numbers down, okay? Too much racing in Southern California.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Sure. Yes.
Over the hump, Victor, Sheldon with his... I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all doing great.
No, they're great.
We're all trying to make a living.
We're trying to solve this issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I first moved to California in '84, love to kill one of those flies.
We're going to get them.
We're going to get them. In '84, I was doing triathlons. I was a triathlete, Wasn't a road biker, but I was a triathlete. Hated riding the road. I did. I never liked it. I just did it. You could do 2 triathlons a weekend if you wanted to in Southern California. You can go to San Dimas and race Pinelli Park, and then go to San Diego and race one. And that carried on for quite a while. And then guess what happened?
Yeah, it's dead.
Just, as a promoter, as you know,
yep.
If there's 10 motocross races around the Phoenix area on the same day, everyone suffers.
For sure.
Everyone suffers. Now, we have been pretty fortunate over the years, as collectively as promoters.
Not land on each other's days.
We
work
respect,
together. Right.
Victor respects me. I respect Victor. I respect Donnie Jackson. We all respect each other. Sometimes there's a little overlap just because of the way it is, but it's just too much racing.
Yep.
Think about it. Okay, put it in perspective. I'm a parent. I'm going to race the Kenda Cup Series. Up until this year, it was 7 races. Well, yeah, 5 here, 4 here, and 3 in Big Bear. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
7 races. The high school league is 6 races. 7 and 6 is 13.
It's only so many weekends out of the year.
I listened to my daughter-in-law and son, and it's like, we got to go to another softball game. And you'll go through the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
It just gets to the point where parents can't do it because it's just they're burnt out and they can't afford it. Here most of them come in camp, which is awesome. I think it's great because the kids are out running around having a great time. But it just gets to be a financial thing, and so I think we're just to the point, particularly in Southern California. I don't know how it is in Wisconsin or Idaho or
It's
wherever.
got to be a similar situation, right? It's coming to that point. California is always usually at the peak of the curve.
We're always at the top of the heap.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to guess in Wisconsin there's not 7 or 8 people putting on bike races.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe there's 5 and they all put on 2.
Yeah.
We're just over the top here.
Yeah.
Over the hump has been going on forever. They've been very successful. Heard it just got sold.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Matt, I think the guy's name was, sold it to somebody else. Victor's do his summer series. And I get it. People are.
Yeah.
So when I look at those summer series, it's like a night at the bar.
And how do you go and tell a promoter, like, hey, just have less races?
Yeah,
you can't. It doesn't work. It's not a simple solution. For
no,
sure.
there's no simple solution to it.
Yeah.
Other than the strong survive, or you figure out, just like
you do.
Rob has, you got to cut the fat. You stay.
You got to make it work.
You stay at Motel 6 instead of the Hilton, and you get through it.
Yeah,
we all do.
So then that leads me to my next thing. You have to be seeing a little bit of the sways of what insurance is to running races and being what our issues are, like we can't go really to Benally Park anymore. And now that we're racing on private land and, bigger, I'm not saying Summit, but bike parks are having, it's no longer a $5 million insurance policy, it's a $10 million. And when does this all start catching up on itself as well,
The insurance thing is still something that I look at, because I've heard people, the insurance price. Look, it started at $250 a rider. It went to $275 a rider. It went to $3 a rider. It went to $475 a rider. And then when they made the switch to the bigger policy, it's $650. Okay, that's just doing business. Just like when you go into McDonald's now, it costs you $20 when it used to cost you $15.
Yeah,
and so and I haven't raised my prices in years. I'm still at $65 for cross country and $85 for. I would say that I've been that way forever, because it's a volume business.
Yes,
got to figure out how to get more people.
Yeah.
To offset, as opposed to
but when our volume's going the other way,
I won't deny it. It's hard because it's just the volume's going the other way, and there's not much you can do. I've got to the point where my staff is pretty minimal.
Yeah.
My lodging is pretty minimal.
Which I get it. We got to make cuts to make it work.
2 years ago, I was renting 5 of these. I'm renting 3.
Yeah.
And if, Terrence, you want to come down early, you're in the loft.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford an extra one. I mean, it's weird. So to me, the insurance
people should be definitely thanking the promoters for putting races on at this point. Like, it's getting aggressively tough, right?
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah.
This weekend was the lowest I've had in, I can't even remember when.
Yeah.
COVID was the best.
Yeah, for sure.
COVID was awesome for me because I was here.
But the insurance prices going up, and bike parks are having injuries, which is understandable. So they're asking for higher levels of insurance.
No, it's definitely a switch. And sometimes it's hard to get it.
Exactly.
They don't necessarily want to write it. McKay will still write it. USA Cycling has that extra policy that gets you at 7 or whatever the hell they want. But no, I don't think.
Do you think that we're going to come to a point where, because everything seems to, like, Enduro is coming, it went to bike parks, right? Or even races being at, it's awesome. Let's have it at Summit. I love Summit, right? And we have to come to a certain point where it's like, all right, they want a $15 million policy. What do you do as a promoter?
Well, and then what's going to happen is the insurance companies will stop writing it.
Exactly.
I've always been amazed with motocross how you guys still can get insurance.
No, we had a big issue this last year.
Really?
Oh, yeah, and I was a big proponent actually on the back end a few years ago, fighting with AMA to do better sanctioning rules and things like that. No, there was a huge issue this year. And it basically tripled.
Wow. See, we haven't seen it so much in mountain biking, but I mean, and there's been some catastrophic cycling things. My buddy Frosty's put on an event in Arizona, and some dude just drove into a freaking Peloton and killed a bunch of people. I'm like you.
Yeah.
So my buddy Mike Hecker put on races at a private ranch in Santa Barbara forever.
Yep.
I don't know if you remember.
I know where it's at.
Yeah. I got Fred's. I can't remember Fred's. It doesn't matter. Chamberlain Ranch. And I used to think to myself, why would the Chamberlains even do that?
Man.
Like, why would they do that?
Yeah.
The exposure is huge.
Huge.
We had a law. It's just anytime I've been sued twice. Well, not me personally, in theory. That's why you have the insurance.
Yeah.
But if you start losing a bunch of those, Whew, man.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I've always been amazed at motocross.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing that we do get insured. And
you still do that waiver where they drive in, you just sign them.
well, we have to get wet signatures, unlike in cycling.
Oh,
you
we
guys
always
get away.
have.
And in cycling, it seems like you guys get away without wet signatures. And
I live by wet signatures forever.
You seem to be a good promoter then.
Well, but we don't anymore because USA Cycling. Well, no, I take that back. We still have to do wet signatures because we have to be on the other platform. We're on active for our registration.
Okay.
You've got to be on bike reg, and they allow.
Because they plug directly into you.
There was a time when the ski resort wanted us to videotape people signing signatures.
So that's what we're going to be switching to in motocross. You'll have to go through a questionnaire on an iPad, and you'll have to be videoed saying yes to the things. Oh, it's bad. It's in a very big crunch situation. We almost lost all of amateur racing this year.
Really?
Oh yeah, we went from there's only really one underwriter left. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
At what point in time?
Because people in motocross abuse the situation. Promoters, I would say we let bad promoters run races. And when I say
so
that,
they built bad jumps.
No,
No?
we had bad promoters that weren't level of policing to like our main thing. 50% of the issues were off-track excursions, and that's pit bikes in the pits, running into trucks or cars or their kids or
And your insurance isn't covering that.
they don't cover off-pit stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how
people don't get that.
no one doesn't get that. Yeah, there's a lot of those little things like that. Yeah.
I've always contended it's just so funny because everybody wants a certificate of insurance, and what does it cover?
Yeah.
Because nobody's reading the policy.
No one, and that was the problem. We had a lot of promoters that weren't reading their own policies.
Yeah. And you go, oh, so if mom's standing over there and Johnny gets out of control,
And cleans
popping a
him out.
wheelie and takes her out, you're not covered.
Yeah.
You're not covered for her.
And I just want USA Cycling has so much control or whatever it is, but so us AMA is our USA Cycling. I went to them 5 years ago and was like, hey, you need to stop letting certain promoters allowed to promote races because they don't read their own policies, and you are you're all grouped together. At the end of the day, K
You're under the
Insurance
same umbrella policy.
doesn't give a fuck if it's Jilly Bob, Bull
Nope,
Bob.
they don't
they're
care.
AMA. They're getting your insurance. That's
They-
how it works. And
People
you gotta,
don't get that.
Yes, no one gets that.
It's a big policy that
Yes.
covers all the events that are going on this day.
Yes.
It's yeah.
And
So,
I
yeah,
just
we
don't
got
know if USA Cycling has the. I see a sway coming a little bit in cycling just with these bike parks, and just I've only been involved realistically 2 or 3 years serious, where I
Right.
get into the policies and understand this, and I'm seeing and went from right when I got in from a 2.5 and it's up to a 10 at some of these parks,
yeah.
and I'm like, they're not just making this shit up.
No,
They're not making this shit up. There's accidents.
no. There's
Yeah.
lots of them.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I mean, when we were airlifting people, we used to airlift out all the time. Broken femurs, broken arms, broken whatever.
And this is a dangerous.
concussions.
These are dangerous sports. Like that's where people have.
But it'd be great if we lived in France.
Yeah.
And-
And in the United States, there's lawyers and there's insurance ambulance chasers.
Yep.
And you crash your insurance company, it's $1 million to fly them on that air flight. They're coming after us. They don't give a shit. The insurance company ain't losing money on that shit.
Nope.
Fuck that.
Nope.
Yeah.
I trust me.
So I don't know if that problem. I mean, you're probably on your closer end of your time, probably doing this type of stuff, right? And are you worried? I mean, it wasn't like this the first 30 years.
No.
And now it's is the pendulum is swinging.
I would say that promoters need to pay attention to the fact that it could get dried up real quickly based on insurance. I mean, look at California.
Yeah.
They don't want to write fire insurance anymore in California. I mean, the government's trying to step in and say, you've got to write fire insurance.
And they're like, we're out.
We're out. Why would we do this?
Yeah.
We're in the business of making money.
Yep.
Why would I insure a bike park when 6 dudes get broken every weekend?
Yep.
And potentially could sue you, and then I've got to pay out if I don't have, because they're spending money defending.
Yep.
They
basically have to settle half the time.
100%.
Yep. You guys have in motocross. We have an interesting minor issue because realistically, it's at 4 years old you can start, and I'm sure you probably know this, but when you sign for a minor, they can basically sue you again.
You can sue you again.
And
Yep.
cycling
Until they're 21, is it?
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, after 8. Because I remember
You have past
being
18
told that I had to keep those releases.
Yes, you have to keep them in the box.
I'm
Hopefully, they don't catch up.
I'm throwing that shit away soon.
Yeah. Oh, believe me.
Because you know how it is.
Oh,
you know when there's a red flag.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so to me, because I'm trying to get out of my storage unit, just trying to. I spend $370 a month on a storage unit. And when we were doing races in Big Bear, it was very necessary because we put shit in there and we take stuff out. We were doing a running race, and it was great. I don't need them anymore. But one of the biggest things in there are boxes of releases.
Yep.
And you know how it works. You put them in, and then you put the other one in front of them, and the other one in front of them. And so the ones that you need to get rid of are way back there. And you got to climb, so you don't. And so now it just keeps growing. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
So we're going to get after that because I got to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to try to get out by the end of June so I don't have to pay any more
And
money.
we can go into the weeds of it, but I do just worry of like, is there some responsibility a little bit missing here soon? Who's going to take the reins?
Well, I think for, like you said, if it wasn't for the ambulance chasing lawyers,
oh yeah,
and that some law somewhere said, hey, if you sign this release, you're done, like a blanket law.
Yeah.
If the wording's this way, the wording's right, then you're just done. But yeah.
I mean, there is. I know we're passing new legislation in the state of Arizona where you can't. We're working with getting a bill passed that would
Isn't
help.
it Colorado that has one?
I don't know, but I know Pennsylvania and stuff like sports venues you're capped at $300,000. When we're working on a new bill for us in Arizona to help cap on that type of stuff.
And it needs to be.
It needs to be.
It needs to be. Because,
Yeah.
and again, unless you're negligent,
I
unless
get
I'm
it.
driving an ATV up the trail,
I get
a downhill trail, and some dude runs into me because I'm a dumbass, I get that.
But not at our park specifically, but I know a park in Arizona that was on an off day, closed, fence gates closed. The guy cut the gate, drove in, unloaded his bike, rode the track while the guy was prepping, and on the downhill jumped into the bucket of the tractor. Sued, won for millions of dollars.
He won?
Yes. On gate closed. So it's that's the I mean there's some crazy stuff. So there's how could you know what I mean? Like there's all these.
Like I'm
weird
looking at you going, he cut the gate lock, came in uninvited, trespassing, and he won.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean there's a bunch of things like that, but I mean for sure, that's a whole other beast of an animal of what it can go down. I just wonder. I mean, cycling has a uniqueness of you guys are having wet signatures and from back in the day, but the change of not wet signatures and
well, that'll be a whole bunch of lawyers figuring that. Well,
he
he didn't really sign that.
Oh,
or he just checked the box.
Yeah, people.
I get it.
Yeah.
God, let's not talk about that kind of stuff.
For sure, I
know you had. Well, because we're in similar. We're in similar
but
situations in motocross and cycling because the bottom line is it could affect all these promoters.
100%.
Because they could eventually somebody could say, like you said, there's only one underwriter that's doing.
Yes.
And eventually they could just go, we're not doing it. Like I said, outside of USA Cycling, I know McKay does it out of Knoxville,
and I know
Iowa.
the things have changed, obviously, in all of people that run anything. This is just you guys to soccer, if you're running, whatever. Now workman comp thing. Everyone has to have a workman comp policy.
Yep.
And that's just another bill.
Mm-hmm.
And
people just, it's hard for anybody to understand what it takes to put on an event.
Yeah.
Whether it's your motocross race, my bicycle race, that soccer tournament, and there's things that come with the territory. Like here, if I could collect $10 a car to come in here, but I can't because the park collects it. When I was at Benelli Park, the park collected that money. That would add to my nut that would make my situation a lot better if I parked 300 cars and got an extra $10 or $15 a car. People just don't understand how much it costs to do it. And
but we could say that Vail, Clint, and EC are, I mean, EC's making the trails. Clint is obviously signing
committed to it.
Is committing to it. This life of this, but he is keeping gravity and cycling and dirt cycling in California alive.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah,
this is a great park. They do a great job here, and you're right. the number of kids and people that come through here to race their bike and ride their bike is amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, the high school league, when they're here, they're doing like 900 riders.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to do 800 or 900 riders.
You and me both.
Fun shit.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, wow, I could look at retiring.
Yeah. You're getting 5 cabins again.
Yeah, I would, because I'd need them.
you would need them.
Need them in registration, people.
Exactly.
We haven't figured that one out yet, ever.
Yeah.
How do you make registration so much easier, but it's not?
I mean, money. Only money.
Yeah, it's
Only
crazy.
Money. Yeah. I mean, all right, so we're getting around the 2-hour thing. I got a few more. Just
okay,
we'll wrap it up, and maybe we have another podcast. Maybe there's
it.
another one we do this again. But I've heard that you've had naked crit racing at some of your races.
Okay.
Define that. I keep hearing these stories of this.
So, actually, not my race.
Okay.
So Mount Snow back in the day always had a naked crit.
And
so
set the scene.
During the Norman Nationals, and it was before we were running the National Series. I had heard about it. And we had been there. We raced there in the early days. And then somewhere in between, we used to hear about this naked crit. So we go there, and we're putting on the National Series at this point, my buddy Frosty and I. And we thought, we're going to go to the naked crit. So at that time, my dad used to show up at the events. He lived in Jersey, and he'd fly out sometime. He was at Park City, and he was big into following my career. And so you'll get the reason why I'm telling the part about my dad in a second. So my dad shows up. He drives up from New Jersey to Vermont, and my dad's a bit of a kook, or he was, ex-Marine, and full of piss and vinegar. So we go. And he can barely walk, so they lend us a golf cart so that I could drive him around. So the naked crit's going to happen. So my dad's like, oh, we're going to the naked crit. We're going to the naked crit. We're going to the naked crit. So my buddy Naked Man and I and my dad drive the golf cart over. Naked Man worked for me, drove the tractor trailer around for us. And so we get there, and we're out of beer. So I said to Naked Man, I'm going to go get some beer. So I think I'm just going to walk in the hotel, order up some beers at the front desk, and go. Nope. Got to call room service. And when I left, I said, Naked Man, you watch George, my dad. So go upstairs. So the naked crit hadn't quite evolved at that point in time. So what happens is once it gets dark, out of the woods comes all these people. They form this big, giant circle. Pretty big, actually. I'd say it extends over to the asphalt over there to here. And it's just a big, giant circle. And I left them there in the golf cart. I go upstairs. I got to go up to the room and wait for room service to bring me a six-pack. Cost me a bunch of money, too. So I get it finally. I'm going downstairs. And as I walk up, the golf cart's not where I left it. And out of the woods, the naked people come on their bicycles. Pro riders, all kinds of people. 15 or 20
What?
of them. And who's standing in the middle of the naked crit? My father. Buck-ass naked.
What?
So what they do is then they walk around and they race. They have people put money in a hat.
Okay.
And then they have preems. Whoever wins the first lap gets $20.
No.
Oh, yeah. And I'm telling you. So my dad is walking around with a hat. Now I'm involved because my dad's walking around naked with his tennis shoes on. And there's 20 people standing over naked on their bicycles waiting for him to raise the money so they can go race their bike. And he walks up. There's a woman standing there, and he looks at it. He says, man, you and I'd be something. He says, you got nice tits. I'd love to kiss those. She goes, go ahead. And he goes, I'm like, oh, my God. So he goes over, and he puts up the pre money, and he starts the race, and he's still standing out there naked, and people ride around, and it's all over with. And as quickly as it comes together, it disappears.
What?
I'm serious. Everybody just disappears. So it's me, Naked Man, and my dad, and a Vermont highway patrolman.
No way.
And he walks over, and he says, oh, I know the golf cart was missing. And he says, what's going on here? I said, well, he says, I said, where's the golf cart? He says, it's over there because you guys stole it.
What?
I said, we didn't steal that golf cart. The resort lent it to us. So my dad walks up to him and puts his arm around him. Naked. And so I started explaining to the guy. I said, well, they gave my dad the golf cart. And they're walking along. My dad's just jabbered with the guy. And we're walking towards the golf cart. He looks at me. He says, if you can get him to take his arm off of my shoulder and get him to put his clothes back on, I'll give you the golf cart and I won't arrest him.
Good deal.
I said, you're in. I said, where are his clothes? Over there in the golf cart. Oh, yeah. George was crazy. He was...
George, your dad.
Yeah, he was fun. Yeah.
So was the naked crit a thing next year and the year
Oh,
after?
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
They did it forever. It was fun.
Okay.
It was just weird. It was like...
It's just weird.
It was just Vermont. And they all just showed up and it was something... You know, every national back in the day had something unique to it. You know, just something... We used to have a mechanics race on Sunday. You know, the mechanics work hard all weekend long. And that's back then there was a lot of teams. And we did a chariot race at Deer Valley one year.
Oh, really?
Somebody had chariots. I think Ron Lindley had chariots, and he brought them out, and you pulled them with a bike. And the mechanics were they were one race, you know, weekend to the next. They were just constantly working. And they would go unplugged. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd show up dressed up in different outfits and everything. It was fun. So we did that for years. That was our thing. Every venue had something.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, you did something a little different. But yeah, the mechanic race was fun. We did that a lot. We did that at Deer Valley. We did that at Summit. Just did goofy things. You know, it was sometimes it was just take all their bikes and take all the wheels off them and scatter them around. And they had to run over and find their wheel and put them on. They had to do a lap or something like that. It was just fun stuff. We had a lot of fun back in the day.
Yeah. Sounds like
it. Everything was so new all the time. I think that's the biggest thing for me was everything was so new.
Yeah.
Every time you turn around, it was new. This venue was new. That event was new. Bikes were changing constantly.
Every week, probably.
Constantly.
Yeah.
The evolution in the early days was like, wow. We went from cantilever to V brakes. They had under the bottom bracket brakes that were not very U brakes. They were called. They weren't very successful. They were horrible, actually. They were. I can't even remember who made those up. U brakes. You know, clipless pedals came out. That was a big thing because we all rode toe clips. Oh yeah, somebody rode toe clips.
That sounds worse than anything I've ever.
It is. You used to have to try to flip it up, stick your foot in, and then pull on the strap. And then now you're stuck in there.
Yeah, you're stuck.
And you got to figure out how to get out before you fall over. It was an art form. It was truly an art form. I bet you most people, like I could probably still do it. I was pretty good at it. We were all good at it. You had to be.
You had to be, no shit.
Yeah. And nobody rode on a cross country. Nobody rode without toe clips. I mean, there might have been
Really?
some, but yeah, nobody rode flat pedals.
And how many they just would take it.
You just knew how to do it. It was just like
how would you start?
you would have one foot in,
go.
strapped, and then you take off. And literally, there was a little nub on most of the pedals. It stuck out about that far. And if you could catch that just right, it would flip up and you slide your foot in. And you'd see people start, and there'd be like multiple.
Shut up.
Oh yeah.
No way.
Oh yeah.
And then they have to get the reach down to.
And then you got to reach down and pull it tight.
Oh.
Austin, I'm telling you, the stuff was so crazy fun. Like I said, the height right. You got to reach back and pull on that thing to go, and then you got to reach back and undo it so it pops up. It was crazy. As opposed to guys like the Rads. The Rads came up to an event I had called Beat the Vulture 5 Peaks Challenge. It was 65 miles, 7 miles of hike a bike, 6,500 feet of climbing. And they used to come up, and it was on these gnarly, steep stuff.
Is this Laguna Rad?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Those guys knew how to ride that stuff. They'd have their balls behind the seat, and because we were hiking up, they were coming down. Be like, those dudes are crazy, but they knew how to do it. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was crazy. Yeah, I did that event for 3-4 years, I think.
So, all right.
I know we'd go on.
Favorite event that you've put on?
I think women's only was.
Okay.
The vibe was. Well, I should. You know, like. Downhill Mania when it snowed might have been my favorite. It snowed.
That sounds brutal.
In June.
In June.
In June. Or the national championship race in June that it snowed 18 inches. And those are probably my top three.
Okay.
Women's only was because of the vibe and the energy level of the women that were being taught and the energy level of the instructors. It was always my favorite. And again, here's a little interesting tidbit. When we did Deer Valley, we did a stage race for the pros. We did a hill climb up the Olympic bobsled run.
How did that go?
It was awesome.
Brutal?
It's short, but we got permission to literally ride up the Olympic bobsled run in a time trial format. Yeah.
And this was toe clip days?
It was they were we were clipless pedals by then.
Okay.
But that's the kind of crazy shit we did.
Yeah.
We were unplugged. We were nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pat said, what do we? I actually tried to convince them, let's do a downhill race on the Olympic bobsled.
I think that would be.
And they wouldn't let us do it. There's two reasons. There are these things that are cover the thing for whatever reason, the corners so they don't fly out, and they were a little too low, and they didn't want
Could you imagine?
and they didn't want the skid marks on the white surface.
I get the skid mark. The other one, let's just run it.
But either way, those are the kind of things we did. But yeah, women's only, and the two snow races, the national and it snowed. I'll never forget Larry Longo, who was our announcer forever. He was just here this weekend, and it snowed out. Place is covered in freaking 18 inches of snow. My partner and we show up in the morning. It was probably Thursday because things started happening early, and all of a sudden I look over and Larry, I didn't know he could yodel.
Yodeling?
And he's standing there with the snow all over the place yodeling. Little did I know it was a recording.
Oh, okay.
But I'm standing there going, holy shit, Longo can freaking yodel. And all I'm thinking about is I should be thinking about plowing snow, and I'm watching Larry yodel. And he stood there for like 3 minutes yodeling. I went, wow, okay, let's go. Let's get this shit done. And we had it was
if he wasn't yodeling, would we have not have raced?
No,
I
because,
don't, maybe I don't know. It got you in the mood. It just
no. It's weird because it had been a really huge winter in Big Bear, so we had spent the spring literally hand shoveling the trails. There was that much snow. It was April and there was still snow, like 5 and 6 feet of snow down at the base area.
Yeah.
My partner, who worked at the ski resort, was plowing the upper roads with the snowcat.
Oh, wow.
We were down hand shoveling the trails. Mammoth had the same situation. They had a huge year.
Yeah.
My buddy Bill
they have
pictures.
Some weird
He had pictures of those
there.
guys. Their snow was even deeper than ours. They were like 8 and 10 feet trying to find the trails. The minute you broke through it, it'd melt back.
Yeah.
So we had done all this work. We had 2 ATVs that had little plows on them, so we'd plow the road, bristle cone. And then we thought we were done.
Yeah.
And it snowed 18 inches. And Pat, it was on a Tuesday. He looked at me and says, we're going to have to, Wednesday maybe, we're going to have to cancel. I said, bullshit. I said, we just spent a ton of money. I said, we're going to get this shit done.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it was Wednesday that Larry's yodeling, whatever. He's yodeling. I'm going to get an ATV. The guy's got shovels. We bought a snowblower that I still have today.
No
Swear to God. Hauled it to the top of the downhill course. And Mike Fonda, one of the kids that worked for me, he's now 50. He drove that thing down the course, blowing the snow off of the freaking trail. And that thing still runs at my house today, 30 years freaking later. Yeah. Track snowblower.
Hey, at least you got your money's worth out of that one.
Hell yeah, it was $950. We bought it at Butcher Block. I'll never forget. Tell me, we did shit. One thing as a promoter, there's no fail.
No.
It's like with timing. You can't fail. Like we still do handwritten backups.
You have to do whatever it takes.
Exactly. You can't fail.
Yeah.
If it's muddy out, like we've had races where it's so muddy you can't read the plates.
Yep. You
go get rags and you have somebody stand there and wipe those freaking things off so you can read the freaking number plate.
Yeah.
Because you don't go, oh, sorry.
Because God forbid you mess up as the promoter once.
Exactly.
It's over.
Yeah. So you get it, and that's the good thing. It's always fun to talk to somebody else that does promotion because you get it.
Yeah.
and there's not. We're a small breed, of, group of people that actually do
we
it.
definitely are a little crazy.
Oh, you have to be.
Yeah,
You have to be a little nutty to want to do this.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but you've got to have that drive that just says, you know what? It's snowing out. How many times we've been here at Vail Lake? It's pouring down rain.
Yeah.
I remember being in Frosty and I were in Colorado. I can't remember the name of the resort we're working at, and unfortunately, the cross country course had to come across the road.
Oh,
Paved road.
yeah.
People driving on. Lightning, thunder, torrential rains. The cops left.
No way.
Swear to God. Frosty and I are standing there directing traffic, making sure our riders don't get run over. The cops left. It was raining so freaking hard. And so
that's
lightning and shit. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But we got riders out. You know how it is. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
You can't just, everybody stop. No, they're out there.
Yeah.
5 or 6.
And at that days, it's not like everyone had cell phones probably. And you're
Hell
just
no.
Like, yeah.
No, we didn't have cell phones back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right.
Been fun.
Fastest racer.
Fastest or best? Fastest. Okay, fastest.
Maybe and it doesn't need to be someone who's now,
fastest
there was
racer
for you that you just, you know what I mean?
Cross country, downhill. See, you can remember.
You could just pick one that you just felt like that day. You're like, holy shit.
Jimmy Deaton. Jimmy Deaton wasn't even my race. Turned the fastest, and I don't remember what the time was. I think it was 63 or 64 miles an hour. Maybe it was 70 miles an hour in the Kamikaze at Mammoth.
Really?
I would bet you if I asked Bill, he was the fastest guy ever down the Kamikaze. Jimmy Deaton, pretty sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to verify that with Bill because I'm pretty sure that Jimmy Deaton went. He was running like a chain ring that was like, it looked like a pizza. Yeah. And I remember somebody asked him one time, what was your, because he won one or two, I think, and he said, you just don't touch the brakes. And if you've ever come down that, it's freaking scary.
Yes.
I mean,
and the rocks, and you're just like.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. But yeah. Best mountain biker, John Tomac of all time.
Really? Tomac?
Easily. Well, first of all, because for me, mountain biking was always about all the disciplines.
Yep.
He could win a World Cup downhill. He could win a World Cup cross country. And he could win a World Cup slalom. And nobody knows that he was a great trials rider when they had trials in the early days.
What was trials?
Just like motorcycle trials.
Yeah, okay.
Jumping around rocks.
And he had, did they have the special bikes a little different?
They used to have two different classes. One was stock. I never understood it. We put them on, but I never understood his stock and there's this. But he could win a trials ride, a race.
Really?
The guy was phenomenal. Tomac, hands down, the best all-around mountain biker ever. Ever. Because Ned might have raced downhill in the beginning because we used to, I know he did because he raced at the Rockhopper South back in the 80s.
Pedal pushing was his thing.
Okay. And Tomac could win a hill climb back in the days we had hill climbs.
Okay. I mean, for the record.
Nicolas Vouillet, probably from a world championship perspective, probably the greatest downhiller of all time.
Okay.
Downhiller,
though. But overall, we're going John Tomac.
Tomac.
Okay. We need more John Tomac.
Nicolas Vouillet couldn't win a cross-country race. Well, I shouldn't say he couldn't. He didn't race him.
Didn't race it. We don't know.
Didn't race him.
Yeah.
Could have. You never know. I would never say that he couldn't. Yeah. Neo Schurter, probably one of the best cross-country guys.
But probably because of his great downhill history.
But he wasn't Tomac just did it all.
Yeah.
Tomac did it all.
Yeah.
And his mechanic, Bob, was amazing. They told stories about how they were always trying to keep up with the Europeans because the Europeans had gotten into tubeless tires in the early days, and they hadn't. And Bob, remember when he got inducted in the Hall of Fame, talked about how Tomac was talking about how they had the extra tube inside, and you could inflate it real quick, and it was always about finishing.
Yeah,
he always had to finish. So
I would imagine a 3-hour race, you have to figure out something, right?
I'm telling you,
yeah,
dudes were animals, and women were animals. I think the men were 245 to 315, and women were 230 to 3.
Okay,
it was crazy.
They ain't doing that now. I can tell you that. That's called gravel racing now.
It's amazing though. I watch these kids race the endurance race here because a lot of these kids will jump in. Mm-hmm. They can go hard for quite a long time. I'm not saying racing 15 other dudes. Because you're going a lot faster.
Yeah.
You're getting into a rhythm on a endurance course. these guys were pushing themselves freaking hard.
Yeah.
I got whole stories about Team Dirt and Bob Roll.
I think we need another one. I
Yeah,
think we need to do another one then.
I could get into that whole thing with Bob Roll. That was fun. And my dad drinking freaking prairie fires with
What's a prairie fire?
light tequila on fire with a shot at Tabasco in it. Him and the owner of the restaurant, they were both Marines, and all of a sudden I'm looking over and what the hell are those guys doing? George, let's have another prairie fire.
No way.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Tom, we got, okay.
Bob Roll, just like you and I sitting here chatting it up, picture dinner with Tomac, Graywall, I can't remember some of the other guys. But Bob Roll, there was a thing called Team Dirt, and they raced the Redlands Cycling Classic. They used it to get in shape.
Okay.
And we managed that for them for 3 years.
Okay.
We were just their water
Yeah.
bottles and all that shit.
Yeah.
Sitting there listening to Bob Roll tell European road racing stories, off the charts. Fun shit. Fun shit. Fun shit.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe we need to have a John Tomac and you on together.
Tomac would be, man, I'd love to hear some of his stories because Tomes he's pretty mellow.
Yeah, I don't know if we could get it out of him.
You could. I think you could. I think, yeah. There's just some legends that are just American legends. There's a bunch of them that I think would be very fun to talk to. Ned, Rishi. Rishi was always fun. Good guy. Yeah, there's just Bob Roll. I mean, he's a character. End of story. Yeah. He's a character. Weensy, Dave Weens was married to Susan DiMattei. She's the one that won the first bronze medal.
Okay.
I mean, two studs. Weensy. He actually, I don't know if he still is, he became the president of, what's the Trails group?
I don't know.
I got a mind block. Oh, well, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
either way, we can do it, whatever.
I think we need to do another one.
Fun stuff.
We've dug into some insane topics on this one. This is great. I wasn't sure what I was going to fully get. You know, I didn't know. You know,
well,
I'm stoked. I'm amazed. It's great.
I've been fortunate. I've done a lot.
Yes, you have.
I've been very fortunate. You know, when you get to this age, you get reflective, and yet you also get reminded that you're still doing it. When I get an email from the Stoked team that says how cool it was and the kids love it and they can't wait to come back next year, and you go, wow, we still have an effect on people.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
It's just a good thing. You know how it is when they show up at a motocross race and mom and dad are stoked. Go, wow, that was a great day. Kids had fun.
Definitely do it for the smiles and just seeing that passion. Yeah. It's huge.
It makes it fat.
It is.
It makes it worth doing it.
It does. 100%.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for all watching this. This is episode 21. You can check it out on iTunes. Well, it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and it'll be on YouTube. It'll take me a little bit to cut this one up, you guys. So hopefully we'll get it pretty quick. But, yeah, 2 hours, 17 minutes here. I think give us a vote. Let us know if you want us to do some more of these with Tom and maybe a little Tomac.
We'll keep them short.
No, not at all. More beers, more tears. Let's fucking do it. I appreciate it, Tom. Thank you so much for coming out here. Thank you, buddy.
This has been an Insider MTB production. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram